Hey guys, tonight we're going back to the 1940s, and I've got to be honest, you probably won't survive this. Not because I don't believe in you. I do. I just also believe in shrapnel, trench foot and bullets that don't care how charming you are. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. Midnight in Milwaukee, 3 AM in Tokyo. I want to know. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Your feet hit the floor with a thud that echoes through the wooden barracks. It's early, way too early. A bugle screaming through the cold morning air and the lights overhead buzz with flickering yellow insistence. You're groggy, half-dressed, and desperately trying to remember how the hell you got here. Less than a month ago you were slouching in a movie theatre watching a propaganda newsreel, eating popcorn with your buddy Distos. Now, you're Private You. You've been drafted. Welcome to the United States Army 1943 edition. They got you in a hurry, didn't they? One letter in the mailbox and suddenly you're getting poked, prodded, and handed a uniform that doesn't fit quite right. The physical exam was more of a cattle call. Line up, strip down, bend over, next. The guy who checked your teeth also seemed to be checking his watch. And the psychological evaluation? That was just a clipboard with, "Do you like to set fires?" written on it, wasn't it? But you passed. Or at least they passed you. And now, like thousands of other young men with dreams, fears, and bad posture, you're learning how to become a cog in the biggest war machine the world has ever known. Basic training is where they start turning you into a soldier. Or at least try to. You're assigned to Fort Benning, Georgia, hot, humid, and crawling with bugs the size of salt shakers. From the moment you arrive, it's clear that your drill sergeant hates you. Not you specifically, just the idea of you. The whole you breathe too loud and think too slow kind of hate. He's loud, square-jawed, and apparently powered by rage and black coffee. His voice, always yelling, becomes your new internal monologue. You can't tie your boots without hearing him in your head shouting, "Faster, Private, unless you plan to die shoeless." Everything's a blur of sweat, dirt and repetition. Marching in formation with blisters tearing at your heels. Push-ups in the rain until your arms shake like cheap jelly. Learning to clean your M1 gun like it's a sacred relic. Because to the army, it is, you sleep with it, you name it, you whisper to it like it's your sweetheart back home. "This is my rifle." There are many like it. Becomes less of a chant and more of a prayer. You're exhausted. All the time. They wake you up before dawn, feed you something that vaguely resembles food, usually grey, always mushy, and then it's off to drills. Some guys cry quietly in their bunks at night, hoping no one hears. One guy fakes a seizure just to get out early, but the medics know the trick. He ends up with extra latrine duty. You all learn pretty quick. No one's coming to save you. Except maybe the weekend, when you get a half day to breathe, maybe write a letter home, but something strange happens as the weeks wear on. You start to adapt. Your body hurts less. You hit targets more often. Your boots still stink, but your laces are always tight. You start to feel a strange kind of pride when the drill sergeant nods, almost imperceptibly, as you disassemble and reassemble your rifle in record time. You and your platoon, once strangers, now grunt and curse in a weird sort of harmony. There's comfort in the routine, brutal as it is. Here's a wild fact. The Army actually experimented with morale-building films made by Hollywood directors, like Frank Capra, to help new recruits like you understand why we fight. They didn't show those in your training, though. They showed you grainy black and white footage of Nazi tanks rolling over Poland and then told you to dig faster. And here's something even weirder. There were divisions in training where men were told that their unit's life expectancy, once in combat, was less than 2 weeks. Some of those guys still signed up voluntarily. You didn't get a choice, but at least you're still here, and for now, alive. There's a big debate in military history circles about how effective American training really was during WWII. Some say it was too rushed, too basic, designed to turn out cannon fodder quickly. Others argue that the emphasis on adaptability and teamwork gave American soldiers a crucial edge. You'll get to form your own opinion soon, because orders are coming. It's toward the end of your training, in that weird stretch where you're not quite a newbie but not quite ready, when your name shows up on a list. You and your unit are being deployed. Overseas. There's no ceremony, no moment of reflection, just a duffel bag, a convoy, and one last look at the base that broke and rebuilt you. You think about your family, Maybe your mum crying in the kitchen, trying to hide it as you left. Maybe your dad shaking your hand a little too hard, pretending he isn't scared. Maybe your little brother asking if you'll come back a hero. You didn't know what to tell them then, you still don't. But you're going. And whatever waits for you across the ocean, it's real now. Your first mistake is thinking this might be like summer camp. You picture a big boat, maybe some card games, the occasional scenic view out to sea. What you get instead is a metal can of sweat and anxiety. A troop ship packed with hundreds of bodies, the air stale and thick like warm laundry that never dried. You're herded on board with the rest of your unit, bumping into duffel bags, tripping over boots, shouting above the hum of engines and orders barked from men whose only job is to keep you moving. The quarters are tighter than you imagined. You sleep in bunks stacked 4 high, and you're lucky if you get a bottom or top. Middle bunks are pure claustrophobia. The ship smells like oil, unwashed bodies, and the kind of chow that looks the same going in as it does coming out. There's a rhythm to it all, the groaning hull, the slosh of sea against metal, and the occasional retching from the guy next to you who's discovering he wasn't made for the open ocean. The days blur together fast. There's not much to do except drill on deck, play cards, or write letters you can't send yet. You try not to think too hard about where you're going. Europe, someplace where the trees are full of snipers and the roads might be mined. The officers don't tell you much. They speak in generalities, drop hints. Could be France, one of them mutters. Could be Italy, could be both. You pass the time watching the horizon. Some guys tell stories about girls they left behind, some real, some clearly imaginary. One guy named Barker claims he's going to open a steakhouse when he gets back, but he says it like he doesn't believe he will. Another guy carves tic-tac-toe boards into the wall near his bunk with a fork. You play one round and beat him. He scratches it out, then starts another. Meals are eaten in shifts. It's always something brown, something beige, something in a can. They call it Navy Gourmet. You call it future stomach trouble. Once in a while, the officers let you up on deck for fresh air, but not for long. You all crowd there like penguins, squinting at the grey ocean and wondering how much longer until land appears. You pretend the wind doesn't carry the smell of nervous sweat and vomit, but it does. It's the smell of men being herded into the unknown. Then comes the drill, lifeboat stations, gas mask checks, how to abandon ship without drowning or getting crushed by your own buddies. You laugh about it later below deck, but the first time they sound the general quarters alarm as a test, your heart just about sprints out of your chest. Turns out being prepared for submarine attack is not a hypothetical, it's protocol. Every now and then the engine's slow and you swear you feel the whole ship tilt like it's holding its breath. It's around this time that you start to get a strange sense of comfort from your uniform. It's itchy, it smells a little like mildew, and your boots have developed their own personality, but it's something solid in the middle of the chaos. You hold on to little routines like gold, folding your gear the same way every morning, polishing your rifle even when it doesn't need it, shaving even when no one's watching. One night you can't sleep and find yourself at the railing on deck. It's quiet, the ocean stretching out black and infinite under a moon that feels too big. You hear someone behind you light a cigarette. It's Corporal Diaz, the one guy in your unit who always seems calm like he's done this before. He doesn't say much, just passes you the cigarette without asking if you smoke. You don't, but tonight you do. The ember glows red and for a moment you both look like ghosts. You scared? He finally asks. You nod because lying about it would be pointless. Good, he says. Means you're not stupid. Strange fact. Troop ships during WWII were sometimes disguised as merchant vessels to avoid attracting enemy submarines. They'd even paint fake windows on the sides. Some of the ships you pass in the night might be doing just that, trying to trick the enemy into thinking they're full of canned beans instead of terrified privates from Ohio and Texas and California. There's some debate among historians about how prepared these soldiers really were. Did the boat ride give them enough time to mentally steel themselves? Or did it just give them more time to realise they had no clue what was coming? You suspect the latter. One guy, Bennett, cracks completely. Just stops speaking one day. They put him on a quiet part of the deck and give him a chaplain to talk to. You watch him one evening staring out at the ocean like he's hoping it'll take him. And then it happens. You wake one morning to the sound of boots thudding and metal clanking. The boat's slowing. Men are shouting in every direction. Through the portholes you catch a glimpse of grey skies and land in the distance. England, green, misty and calm. You expected something more dramatic, but you're not in the fight yet, just a staging area. A brief pause before the storm. You step off the boat feeling a mix of relief and dread. The air smells different here. Damp earth, coal smoke, and something that reminds you of home, but not quite. A lorry rumbles by on a cobbled road, and a British soldier waves lazily from the back. You wave back, and suddenly it all feels very, very real. You're not a trainee anymore, you're deployed. You're far from home. And the war is no longer a newspaper headline, it's the road ahead of you. England is weird. Not bad, just different in a way that nags at you, like a song stuck in the back of your mind. The first thing you notice is how quiet everything feels. No blaring radios, no roaring engines, just muffled conversations, boots on stone, and the occasional dog barking in the mist. The town you're assigned to is somewhere in southern England, but it hardly matters. It's all green hedgerows, foggy mornings, and old stone buildings that look like they belong in a fairy tale, one that got interrupted by Nazis. Your unit sets up in a temporary camp just outside the village. Rows of tents sprout like mushrooms overnight. British soldiers pass through occasionally, looking older and more worn than the Americans. Some of them fought in North Africa, and they move with a haunted precision, like men who've seen too much and talk about it too little. They smoke thin cigarettes, call you Yanks, and laugh when you try to understand their slang. You're pretty sure bloke is friendly and wanker is not. But there's something comforting about being on land again, even if it's damp and smells like wet sheep. The chow's still bad, but at least it's not rocking back and forth. The townspeople are cautious but polite. They've seen hundreds of you come through already, some smiling, some terrified. The children wave at you like you're movie stars, and the older women offer lukewarm tea with some side of judgment. You meet a baker's daughter named Rose who tells you her brother died at Dunkirk. You say you're sorry and she nods like she's heard it 1,000 times. Training picks up again. This time it's serious. The officers won't say exactly what's coming, but everyone knows. It's in their eyes, in the way they triple-check every weapon, every map. You're briefed on assault landings, how to jump from a Higgins boat, how to find cover, how not to drown under 50 pounds of gear. They take you to the coast and make you practice in mock-up terrain. Sandbags become bunkers. You crawl under barbed wire and listen to live rounds snap overhead. It's terrifying and exhilarating, and at some point, you stop asking when you'll be going into action. You just start waiting for it. One foggy morning, a staff sergeant gathers your unit around a table. There's a map with far too many arrows on it, and he points to a stretch of beach in Normandy. Utah, they call it. You're going to land there, push inland, secure the roadways, link up with paratroopers. Easy, right? He doesn't mention the German bunkers, the machine guns, the mines, but you see it in his clenched jaw. Here's a little-known fact. Some soldiers were issued playing cards with diagrams of German tanks and aircraft so they could identify them in the field. You flip through a deck one night in the barracks. Panzers, Messerschmitts. Half of it looks like science fiction, but it's all real, and it's waiting for you just across the channel. Then there's the fringe stuff, the rumours. British locals swear the invasion's already cursed. Too many accidents in training. One guy swears he saw a ghost during a beach exercise. Another insists his compass spins in circles every time they get near the cliffs. You chalk it up to nerves, but part of you can't help feeling the air thickening with tension, like nature itself is bracing for impact. Historians still argue about how much the average soldier really knew before D-Day. Some say you were kept in the dark to preserve operational security. Others think you were just too overwhelmed to fully grasp it. You don't know which is true, but you do know this. Nobody's cracking jokes anymore. You write a letter home. You don't say where you are or what's coming. Censorship rules make sure of that. But you tell your mum you're doing okay, that England's quaint and that the food is tolerable. You tell your kid sister to keep practicing piano and promise to send her a British coin. You sign it with a joke she used to love, then fold it carefully like it might be the last one you ever send. The night before deployment, you don't sleep. Most guys don't. Some try, curled up in tents or makeshift bunks, but sleep won't come, not really. You stare at the canvas ceiling and listen to rain tapping out a slow funeral rhythm. Someone is quietly crying nearby. Someone else is humming a song off-key and almost inaudible. You think about home. You think about Rose and her brother at Dunkirk. You think about whether your boots will fill with water as soon as you step off the boat. Morning comes, grey and cold, and you're marched to the trucks in silence. No bands, no speeches, just the sound of gear clinking and boots in the mud. You're handed extra ammo, a life preserver, and a bag you're told not to open unless you get separated. It contains maps, a chocolate bar, and a slip of paper that says, "You are now in enemy territory." The trucks rumble toward the coast. You pass more units lining up. Some wave, some just stare. You wonder if this is what gladiators felt like on their way into the arena, watching the world move around them while knowing their lives were narrowing to a single moment. You try not to imagine the beach, but your brain won't let you off the hook. It feeds you flashes of barbed wire, bullets, and blood on sand. The ship that takes you to your staging point is bigger, louder. This time the air is electric. Some men pray, some laugh like lunatics. One guy just sits with his helmet in his lap, whispering names you don't recognize. You try to look calm, but your hands betray you. Trembling so bad you almost drop your rifle when you pick it up. Nobody mocks you. They're all shaking too. And then you see it, lined up on the horizon like a death trap dream. Dozens of boats, hundreds. An entire floating army pointed at the coast of France. The greatest invasion force in human history, and you're part of it. Just one man in one boat clutching a weapon and hoping the ocean isn't your grave. You breathe deep, salt and diesel. You taste fear in your mouth. Next stop, Normandy. You don't see the beach at first. All you see is grey water stretching endlessly under a sky that can't decide if it wants to rain or cry. The invasion has begun. Operation Overlord, D-Day. You're in one of the hundreds of Higgins boats packed tight with other soldiers, knees bumping, rifles clutched close like teddy bears in a nightmare. The boat rocks and heaves, slapping the weird waves with enough force to jar your teeth. Some guys are already throwing up over the side. One pukes into his helmet and just stares at it like it holds the future. Your sergeant stands in the front, hand on the rope netting, face set like granite. He's the kind of guy who once chewed out a lieutenant for being too slow on the draw. Now he's quiet. Real quiet. That tells you everything. Every jolt of the boat sends a spike of nerves up your spine. You're soaked from the knees down, freezing, and every second feels like a countdown you can't hear, but definitely feel in your bones. Men in those bunks, the bones under those blankets, the eyes that looked through you instead of at you. Jennings tries to light a cigarette, but his hands won't stop shaking. Diaz doesn't write in his notebook. He just stares into the fire, face blank. Someone starts crying quietly under a tarp nearby. You pretend you don't hear. You lie down with your helmet over your face and close your eyes. But when you sleep, it's there. The smoke, the smell, the stacks of things no one should ever have had to stack. And then the worst part. The survivors. Because they were alive. Still are. And they looked at you like you were an angel and a stranger and maybe something in between. And you didn't feel like any of those things. You felt like a kid. A tired, confused, dirty kid who suddenly knew more about evil than any sermon or schoolbook had ever hinted at. You write a letter to your mother the next morning. You start, "I saw something I can't explain," and then you stop. You ball it up and throw it into the fire. Some things don't belong on paper. Some things don't even belong in your mind, but now they live there. Forever. It's strange how quickly the war starts to feel like it's unravelling. Not ending, unravelling. Like someone's yanked a thread and the whole front is slowly coming apart, but nobody knows quite how or when it'll finish. You're deeper in Germany now, farther east than you ever expected to get. Every day the resistance grows weaker, but the danger doesn't. If anything, it becomes more erratic. Ambushes in towns that were supposed to be cleared. Lone snipers firing from steeples. Mines left behind like cruel afterthoughts. It's not war in the way it used to be, it's something meaner. Meaner and messier. Your unit's tasked with sweeping a series of rural villages that dot the countryside like bruises. You're not expecting much, most of these places have already been passed through by other divisions, but you've learnt not to trust the word secured. Half the town's labelled clear on your map so they still reek of gunpowder and echo with dying gunshots. You've started calling them maybe safe zones. You don't holster your weapon, you don't take off your boots. The first village you reach is mostly empty. A few elderly civilians, a couple of kids, one family hiding in a root cellar, who emerge blinking and terrified like they've been underground for centuries. No sign of German troops, but you find spent cartridges in the street and fresh drag marks in the dirt. You keep moving, you reach the next town by dusk. It's bigger and not abandoned. In fact, it's oddly busy. German soldiers, at least 24 of them, sit in the square under a white flag, helmets off, rifles stacked in a neat triangle. Your heart nearly stops when you first see them. your trigger finger twitching before your brain catches up. Then your sergeant raises a hand. "They're surrendering," he says. And they are. They stand when ordered, hands raised, boots crunching as they step forward one at a time. You disarm them, frisk them, line them up along a wall with guards posted on both ends. Their faces are blank, some tired, some defiant, a few with eyes that twitch just a little too much for comfort. You know what they've done, what they were part of, what they let happen. You think about Ordruff and feel your jaw clench so hard your teeth hurt. One of the prisoners tries to speak English. He's young, maybe 19, maybe lying, says he was conscripted, says he never fired his weapon, says a lot of things that might be true, but you're done passing guilt like it's a code. The truth is, even if he never hurt anyone directly, he wore the uniform, and that means something. You watch him get loaded onto a truck with the others and wonder what his trial, if there is one, will look like. Here's something that doesn't make the history books. The look on a surrendering soldier's face isn't always fear. Sometimes it's relief. You see it now, more and more. German troops who just want to go home, who've stopped believing in orders, who break into tears when handed a cigarette and told it's over for them. Some try to shake your hand, you let a few, others you ignore. You don't have the room in your chest for empathy today. There's an argument among the officers that night. Someone says we should be pushing faster. Another argues we're not equipped to handle the number of POWs we're collecting. Supplies are strained, fuel is low, trucks overloaded, and there's still word of SS units refusing to surrender, executing deserters and hanging civilians who wave white flags. You listen from the edge of the group, not speaking, just letting the weight of it all press deeper into your spine. The next morning you're moving again. The roads are worse than ever, rutted, muddy, torn apart by tank treads and shell holes. Your boots fill with water before you've even cleared the first hill. You find an overturned cart full of dead horses, bloated and stiff. The air buzzes with flies. One of the guys in your squad tries to cover his nose with a scarf and mutters, "At least they didn't know who Hitler was." You laugh, but it's the kind that stays in your throat and never makes it to your lungs. Around midday you get ambushed. Not by soldiers, by what they now call Volkssturm, civilian fighters. Old men with bolt-action rifles, boys barely out of school with Hitler Youth armbands and grenades strapped to their belts. You're walking past a barn when it erupts in gunfire. 3 guys go down. One of them is Jennings. You dive into a ditch, mud in your mouth, bullets slicing through the air like sewing needles through fabric. It only lasts 5 minutes. You return fire, toss a grenade. The barn collapses. When the dust settles, you find 5 bodies, 2 of them definitely not older than 15. You stare at their faces for a long time. Then you look at Jennings face down, his helmet missing, his rifle bent beneath him like a broken crutch. You don't speak the rest of the day. That night you dig a hole in the yard behind a ruined house and help bury him. You mark it with a helmet on a stick, just like you've done too many times now. Someone mumbles a prayer. Someone else throws in a photograph that they found in his pocket, his girl back home, smiling in front of a drugstore. You wish you knew her name. And then, it's back to routine. Restack ammo. Clean your weapon. Check your boots. Try not to think too hard. You sit on a wooden crate near the fire, passing around a tin of sardines and talking about nothing in particular, baseball, beer, the price of eggs. One guy swears he's going to open a bowling alley after the war. You don't correct him. You just nod, like it's already real. Here's a strange historical footnote. Some American units started marking their trucks with hand-painted messages during the final stretch of the war. Things like Berlin or bust, or the last rounds on me. A kind of defiant poetry scrawled in chalk and fading paint. You think about painting something on your helmet, then decide against it. You're not sure what you'd even write. Please Let Me Survive doesn't really fit the heroic mould. You go to sleep that night with Jennings' picture still in your head. The lines are thinning, the cities ahead are falling, the Reich is dying, but it's not dead yet. And every mile forward still costs you something you can't get back. VE Day comes and you don't even hear about it until hours later. You're crouched in the shell of a house outside a town that doesn't exist anymore, staring down the barrel of a rifle that hasn't needed to fire in 3 days. You've been running patrols, guarding roads, and watching the tree lines like they still hold ghosts, which they might. There have been no confirmed sightings of enemy troops in your sector, but that doesn't mean they're not out there somewhere, waiting for you to let your guard down. When the news finally reaches you, it's delivered by a breathless private with dirt on his face and a gash on his forehead. He stumbles over the bricks and yells, "It's over! The Germans surrendered. Signed it this morning." You don't cheer. No one does, not right away. You look around at the faces in your squad and see something closer to confusion than joy. Maybe you misheard, maybe it's a joke. You've been promised almost over for months now. Hearing it's done just doesn't register. Then someone confirms it over the radio. The official broadcast full of words like unconditional surrender and victory, spoken with just enough ceremony to make it sound rehearsed. You sit back, lean against the cracked wall behind you, and close your eyes. You should feel something. Relief maybe, joy. But instead all you feel is tired. The kind of tired that sinks into your bones and decides it's never leaving. You're still holding your rifle. You don't put it down. Later, there's a celebration of sorts. Not organised, not official. Just men in torn uniforms and crusted boots passing around bottles of whatever they can find and pretending they know what to do with the silence. Someone finds a piano in the corner of a cafe that still has half a roof and plays Boogie Woogie Bugle Boy, badly enough that it's almost charming. You sit outside with your mess tin full of weak coffee and try to remember how to smile like a civilian. Diaz lights a cigarette and offers you one. You take it. He says, "So? We won?" You nod. "Guess so." He exhales smoke and stares off at nothing. It doesn't feel like winning. It feels like the music stopped, and we forgot what dancing was. You hear rumours that some guys are going home soon. Not you, though. Your orders are different. Your unit is being held in place, possibly redirected. The war in Europe might be over, but the war in the Pacific isn't. There's talk of redeployment, jungle warfare, islands you can't pronounce. You imagine trading snow for humidity, ruined cities for swamps, tanks for flamethrowers. You don't know what's worse. And here's the kicker. Some guys who are just about to be sent home are now being reclassified for the Pacific Theatre. They call it Operation Downfall, a full invasion of Japan. Estimated casualties? Hundreds of thousands, maybe more. The brass won't say it out loud, but everyone knows it's going to be a bloodbath. You haven't even dried your boots from the Ardennes, and already they're planning to throw you back into the fire. So you wait. Waiting is something you've gotten good at. You wait for orders, for updates, for confirmation that yes, the war is still over, and no, this isn't some elaborate prank. In the meantime, you help sort equipment, clean weapons, guard roads, run inventory on crates of ammunition no one needs anymore. You inspect your rifle like it's still going to be the difference between life and death. One afternoon, you're told to escort a convoy carrying supplies to a town outside Nuremberg. Just logistics, just boxes. But as the truck rolls through village after village, the scope of what's happened hits you in a new way. There's barely anything left. Buildings are charred husks, churches missing spires, streets cratered and pocked with bullet holes. And the people, they look like shadows of themselves, thin, hollowed out, cautious. You stop for a break in a square where children play with a ball made of rags. One of them offers you a piece of hard bread. You shake your head, but he insists. You take it, break it in half, give him some chocolate from your ration kit. His eyes go wide. You'd think you handed him gold. Maybe you did. And still, the work continues. You're assigned to stand guard at a checkpoint leading into a military tribunal site. Word is they're getting ready for trials. Trials for war crimes. For what was done in the camps. For what wasn't done by those who looked away. You see men in suits and uniforms walk past. Some chained, some not. Some smug, some trembling. All of them human. That's the hardest part. They look like anyone else. There's a long-standing debate among war scholars about whether evil is something exceptional or something ordinary. You're starting to believe it's both. There were monsters behind the wire fences, sure, but there were also clerks, teachers, fathers, people who believed what they were told until it rotted them from the inside out. You don't know what justice will look like or if it's even possible. You just know the world can't go back to pretending it never happened. Back at camp, you get word that Diaz is being shipped home. His sister's sick, something about a family deferment clause. He hugs you before he leaves, really hugs you, and says, "Don't die in a jungle, man. I've seen enough of you for a lifetime." You watch him climb onto the truck, his duffel swinging off one shoulder. He waves once, then he's gone. That night, you finally do it. You take off your boots, peel them off like old skin. Your feet are pale, wrinkled, sore. You stare at them for a long time. They're yours again. They don't belong to the army. Not yet, anyway. You lie on your bunk, boots beside you, and try to picture home. Not the idea of it, the real home, The creak of the porch, the smell of your father's workshop, the way your mother makes tea and forgets where she left it. The quiet. You almost feel it. Almost. But then a corporal comes into the room holding a clipboard and calls your name. Your orders are in. You're going to the Pacific. You don't want to get back on a boat. You really, really don't. But here you are again. Duffel bag slung over your shoulders, a rifle at your side, heart lodged somewhere between your stomach and your throat. It's not the same troopship from before, but it might as well be. Same rust-streaked steel. Same creaking bunk stacked like coffin drawers. Same smell of grease, sea air and desperation. The ocean yawns out ahead of you, impossibly wide, stretching all the way to your next destination, the Pacific. You try not to think about how far from home that really is. You've barely wrapped your head around the idea that the war in Europe is over, and already they're shipping you off to fight in another hemisphere, on a completely different kind of battlefield. There are whispers about Okinawa, about the losses piling up there, about kamikazes and jungle ambushes, and Marines getting picked off like flies in the heat. You overhear a Navy officer say something about casualties being astronomical. You pretend not to hear. You stop asking questions. The trip is long and boring and sickening. A different kind of hell. Gone is the bitter cold and numb hands of the Ardennes. Now it's just heat and humidity and a constant oily slick of sweat that seeps into your socks and makes your uniform cling like wet paper. The guys who've fought in the Pacific already are easiest to spot. They wear their gear like second skin, eyes narrowed against the sun, faces blank but alert. You try to watch them, study how they move. They look like they've stopped waiting for the war to end. The first island you set foot on isn't a combat zone. It's a staging area. One long airstrip, a series of tents that melt in the sunlight, and endless crates of supplies baking in the heat. It smells like exhaust, seawater, and whatever's rotting in the garbage pile behind the mess tent. You're issued new gear, lighter than the wool and canvas you wore in Europe, but somehow even less comfortable. Your boots chafe your ankles, your helmet heats up like a stovetop. You miss the cold in ways that make you question your sanity. You drill again, like it's the first month of basic, but this time it's beach landings, clearing palm groves, moving silently through bamboo. You run obstacle courses in the sun until your lungs feel like they're lined with sand. You learn how to treat coral cuts and snake bites. You're taught not to touch anything that looks like it was left behind. Could be a trap. Could be someone waiting. You don't sleep well. No one does. At night you can hear the insects outside your tent chirping like they're laughing at you. Then come the rumours. Operation Downfall, the invasion of Japan, is drawing closer. There's already a plan. You'll be part of the mainland assault if it comes to that. The casualty estimates trickle down in the way bad news always does. 200,000, maybe more. Some of guys write new wills. Some start skipping showers like they're already ghosts. You spend an entire afternoon sitting on a crate writing letters you don't know if you'll get to send. One to your mother, one to your sister, and one to nobody in particular. Just in case. A week later, while you're on supply duty, a jeep skids into the camp, kicking up clouds of dust. The driver's grinning, waving a newspaper. Everyone rushes over, confused, anxious. You catch a headline in bold black letters. You don't understand it at first. One bomb destroyed a city, the paper says. Not a raid, not a firestorm. One bomb, a new kind, nuclear. The word means nothing yet, but the implications claw at your brain. You're not sure if you're supposed to be awed or terrified. You read the article 3 times, a city gone in seconds, then a few days later another one. Nagasaki, same result. And then silence. The fighting doesn't just stop, it fades. Like a record slowly winding down, no official orders, no fanfare. Just one day you wake up and no one's yelling, no one's moving. There are no new deployments, no new drills, just waiting again. Then the announcement over the loudspeaker. Japan has surrendered. You sit on the ground, back against a tent pole, and stare into the dust. Night comes fast. No stars tonight, just thick clouds and the faint sound of artillery far off, like thunder that forgot how to rest. You're posted on watch again, squatting behind a sandbag mound, with your rifle across your knees. Every gust of wind makes you flinch. Every branch that shifts makes you grip your trigger just a little tighter. You think about the letter in your pocket, about the girl in the shell factory and her warm open smile. You wonder if she's still smiling now. You wonder if you'll ever see her again. You shift your weight, blink into the darkness. Still here, still waiting, still surviving. You hear about Paris before you see it. whispers among the officers, excited murmurs from guys in the cowl. Next platoon over. The city's close now, close enough to taste in the air, or maybe that's just the faint scent of diesel, cigarette smoke. And the kind of anticipation that sticks to your skin like sweat. After weeks of slogging through hedgerows and villages that barely had names, the idea of a city, a real city, feels almost mythical. Paris, the city of light, culture, music, wine. At least that's what the travel brochures used to say. Right now, all you can think is, does it have hot food and roofs that don't leak? But of course, nothing's ever simple. The word comes down. Paris isn't just some tourist spot to march into with a grin and a camera. It's a strategic point, a symbol, and also a potential death trap. The Germans may be retreating, but they've left surprises. Booby traps, snipers, even rigged bridges and tunnels. Some units are already inside the city limits, reporting skirmishes and chaotic pockets of resistance. Others are still fighting in the suburbs, inching their way in like the city might suddenly vanish if they don't keep eyes on it. Your squad gets assigned to the western approach. You're moving through a district with grand old buildings and narrow streets, the kind that echo with every step. Balconies sag with flower boxes that haven't been watered in weeks. Doors hang open. A radio crackles from somewhere inside a second-floor apartment, playing a scratchy recording of an old chanson. You half expect a woman in a red dress to lean out a window and blow a kiss. Instead, you see sandbags and the cold glint of a rifle barrel poking out from behind curtains. This is your introduction to urban combat, and it's every bit as awful as you feared. The enemy is everywhere and nowhere, firing from rooftops, ducking down alleys, vanishing into sewers. You move in tight formation, clearing buildings one by one, always waiting for the shot that might end you. Sometimes you fire back, sometimes you don't get the chance. At one point you pass a cafe where tables are still set, white cloth stained with dust and ash. A bottle of wine sits uncorked. You want to sit down, you don't. Snipers are the real nightmare. They don't announce themselves with shouts or thunderous gunfire. They just appear, firing a single round that cuts through the air like a scalpel. One guy in your platoon, Harper, goes down with a neat hole in his helmet and no time to even scream. You hit the deck and stay there for what feels like an hour, pressed against the wall of a bakery where the scent of stale bread mixes with blood. Eventually your squad roots him out. A lone German sharpshooter holed up in an attic, lying among dusty mannequins and broken furniture. He's barely older than you. You don't know who fired the shot that dropped him. Doesn't matter. He's gone now, one more name nobody will ever know. P.S. While sweeping a residential building, you find a room filled with mirrors, a dance studio maybe. The floor is scuffed, the walls lined with long glass panels, cracked and dusty. You stare at yourself, mud-caked, hollow-eyed, helmet tilted slightly askew, and you don't quite recognise the man looking back. Then someone behind you bumps into a stack of boxes, and for a second, every mirror in the room flashes with movement. You all freeze, rifles up, eyes wild. But it's just you, just your reflections. You move on quickly, not saying a word. You meet your first resistance fighter that afternoon. She's small, sharp-eyed, wearing a brown coat and boots too big for her feet. Speaks English well enough to tell you the Germans are still holding the bridge up ahead. They've wired it to blow. She leads you through back alleys and underground passages, cigarette clenched between her teeth the whole time like she's been at this for years. Maybe she has. She introduces herself as Elodie. You ask her how old she is. She says 17. Then she shoots a German scout between the eyes like it's just part of her day. You reach the bridge after dark. The engineers get to work, sweat pouring off their faces as they search for the explosives. There's gunfire in the distance, but not near enough to stop the job. You and your squad set up a perimeter. One guy hums the French national anthem under his breath. Another curses every 20 seconds like it's keeping him alive. You just keep scanning the shadows, rifle ready, stomach a knot. They find the explosives, disarm them, the bridge stays standing. That's when the real celebration starts. Word spreads fast. Paris is liberated. The Germans are retreating or surrendering, some under fire, others just slipping away into the night. The next morning your unit marches through the city in full gear. The streets are full of Parisians, cheering, waving flags, tossing flowers like confetti. You can barely process it. Women kiss you. Children climb on tanks. Men shake your hand like you personally won the war. It feels surreal, too clean, like a movie scene they forgot to include the pain in. Here's a wild fact. During the liberation, some Parisians dragged collaborators, French citizens who worked with the Nazis, into the streets, shaved their heads, and paraded them in shame. You don't see that firsthand, but you hear about it. It makes your stomach twist. War turns everyone into something else. You're not always sure into what. You find yourself near the Eiffel Tower, and even though you're not supposed to, you climb a few flights of stairs just to get a look. The city stretches out in every direction. Grey rooftops, winding streets, the Seine glinting in the afternoon sun. You try to feel triumphant. You really do. But part of you just wonders how long this calm will last. How many other cities will need to be liberated before you get to go home? There's a scholarly debate about the true value of liberating Paris. Some say it was symbolic more than strategic. Others argue it cut German supply lines and bolstered French morale in a way no battlefield ever could. You don't care about any of that. All you know is that for once the people are smiling, and for a few hours you can walk down a street without expecting to die. That night you eat warm bread, real bread, fresh, crusty. Someone hands you a bottle of wine, and you sip it while leaning against the back of a truck. It's bitter and a little sour, but it's perfect. You close your eyes, and for the first time in weeks, your dreams don't wake you up. It happens on a quiet morning, the kind you've started to fear more than the loud ones. No bombs, no sirens, no frantic orders barked across a radio, just a dawn that creeps in gently, soft light spilling across your makeshift barracks in an old schoolhouse on the outskirts of Paris. The chalkboards are still smudged with arithmetic, and someone's drawn a crude caricature of Hitler getting punched in the face in one corner. You smile at it every morning like a private ritual. This morning you don't. Today something changes. You're on patrol outside the city, checking a cluster of stone farmhouses for any lingering German resistance. It's supposed to be routine? That's the word they use. Routine. Like you're just out delivering mail instead of walking into possibly rigged ruins with your rifle raised and your lungs tight. There's no sign of movement in the first two houses, only the echo of boots on old floorboards and dust thick in the air. The third house smells like dried blood and burnt wood. You step in, and that's when it happens. A figure bolts from the back room, young, fast German uniform but no weapon in sight. For a second everything slows. You shout. He doesn't stop. He's not coming at you, he's just trying to escape. Maybe he's just scared. Maybe he's 17. Maybe he doesn't speak English. Maybe. You fire. One shot sent a mass. He stumbles, hits the wall, slides down it in a heap. You move in fast, heart racing, rifle raised again, because what if he was faking? What if he's got a grenade? But no. Just blood now. A lot of it. You crouch next to him, hands shaking. His eyes are wide, searching your face for something. Recognition. Help. Maybe forgiveness. You don't speak German, he doesn't speak English, but there's no mistaking the look in his eyes. He dies 2 minutes later. The room is still. Your squad catches up and one of them says, "Good shot," but you don't answer. You're looking at the kid's boots. They're not standard issue. They're old, repaired with string and leather patches. His belt is too big. His shirt is threadbare at the cuffs. And his weapon, nowhere in sight. There's a satchel beside him. Inside it, 2 boiled potatoes, a small loaf of bread, and a photo of his family. He wasn't attacking, he was running them. Your sergeant tells you not to think about it too hard. "That's war," he says. You nod, but it's just reflex now. You carry the moment with you the rest of the day, heavier than your gear. He looked your age, maybe younger. The face flickers in your memory like a film reel stuck on the same frame. You try to push it out. You try to breathe. You try to be okay. You fail. Here's the twisted part. This isn't uncommon. It's not even shocking. Soldiers on both sides have been killing people who didn't shoot back since day one. Sometimes it's a mistake. Sometimes it's just the logic of fear. The rules are clear on paper, but in real time, with adrenaline pounding and seconds to act, paper doesn't mean much. Some historians still argue whether that kind of kill is justified in combat zones. Others say if you hesitate, you die. You now understand both arguments in a way you wish you didn't. Back at base, you sit alone. You don't write a letter. You don't clean your rifle. You don't even eat. You just stare at your boots, still speckled with dried blood. Riley sees you and doesn't ask anything. He just sits next to you in silence, peeling an apple with his knife and tossing the skins into the dirt. He doesn't offer you any. You don't want it anyway. Later that night, someone brings out a deck of cards. You all play poker by lantern light. You lose every hand and no one bothers taking your money. Someone makes a joke about an officer's mustache. Someone else farts so loud it echoes through the room. Everyone laughs, even you finally. but the laugh doesn't reach your eyes. You go to sleep without saying much, and the kid's face is waiting for you when you close your eyes. A couple of days later, your squad receives orders to secure a nearby rail depot, suspected of harbouring retreating Germans. It's another mission like the last one. Enter, sweep, report. You move fast now, methodical, less hesitation. You check corners with clean practice motions. You don't flinch at shadows anymore. In the office building, attached to the station, you find a desk still covered in paperwork. One sheet has a list of names neatly typed. Another has shipping schedules. And then you find the body. Not a soldier, just a man in a station master's uniform, slumped over in a chair with a single bullet wound to the head. His hands are folded in his lap. No weapon nearby. A note in French sits on the table beside him. One of your guys translates, "They told me to do it. I didn't. I hope that matters." That's when it really starts sinking in. This isn't a war of clear lines, not anymore. It's not just uniforms and rifles and storming beaches. It's blurred faces, blurred rules, blurred guilt. The enemy isn't always pointing a gun at you. Sometimes he's running away. Sometimes he's already dead. Sometimes he's you in a different uniform. There's an old rumour, maybe true, maybe not, that Allied soldiers used to leave playing cards, the ace of spades in particular, on the bodies of enemy troops. Psychological warfare, they called it. A symbol of death. You've never done that. But today, as you walk out of that rail depot, you catch yourself checking your pocket, just in case. You pause by the tracks before heading back to base. The rails stretch into the trees, rusty and broken in places, like they're tired of carrying people toward war. You imagine what it would be like to just walk along them all the way home. One boot after the other, no more orders, no more shots in the dark. But you don't. You turn around, sling your rifle over your shoulder and start the march back. There's no one cheering now. You don't see it happen. That's the worst part. 1 minute you're moving through a dense patch of woods, pine needles underfoot, shafts of morning light cutting through the branches like soft knives. And the next, there's a sudden blast of sound and movement behind you. A boom so loud it doesn't feel like sound, just pressure, like the air itself folds in. Dirt, leaves, and parts of trees scatter in all directions. You hit the ground by reflex. Your ears are ringing before your brain catches up to the fact that someone just detonated a mine. You scramble back. There is screaming. Not distant, not cinematic. Immediate and human and sharp enough to cut through the ringing in your skull. You reach the source in seconds, heart pounding like a war drum. It's Sims. He was maybe 10 feet behind you, walking over the same ground you just crossed. Now he's on the forest floor, clutching at what used to be his right foot and is now a mangled, bloody wreck of bone and flesh. Medics are already on him. One shoves morphine into his arm, another wraps a tourniquet around the stump. You kneel nearby, helpless, trying to do something useful. Hold his hand, maybe, or keep him conscious. He's trying to talk. You can't make out the words over your own breath. Then his eyes roll back and he goes quiet. They get him on a stretcher fast. The medic says he'll live. Maybe. Depends on the blood loss, the shock, the trip back to the aid station. You nod like you understand, but your brain's already far away, looping the moment in slow motion. He was right behind you. One step off and it could have been your legs strewn across the underbrush. Your blood soaking into the moss. You stay in place after the stretcher disappears into the trees, rifle across your knees, staring at the crater. Not big, not dramatic, just enough to ruin a man. The mine was old, probably rusted into the soil. German design, pressure triggered. Left there weeks ago, maybe longer, just waiting. Here's a strange little footnote about the war. Not all mines exploded when stepped on. Some were designed to detonate when the pressure was released. So you could step, feel the click, and have only a few seconds to say goodbye before your next move ended everything. A few soldiers figured out how to jam bayonets into the ground to try and disarm them. Others just stood there, praying for a miracle. Sims didn't get that kind of warning. The rest of your squad moves more slowly now, feet placed deliberately, eyes scanning the ground like it's made of glass. Every stick might be a wire, every mound of dirt might be your last. Someone jokes that you should get paid extra for walking. No one laughs. You reach the village by late afternoon. Another cluster of stone buildings, another blown-out chapel, another courtyard turned into a graveyard for burnt-out tanks. The enemy left in a hurry this time. You can tell by the scattered gear, the open ration tins, the papers still flapping in the breeze on a desk in what used to be a school. You clear the area anyway, standard procedure. and set up camp near a well that might actually be drinkable. That night you sit by a small campfire with Riley and Diaz. Someone scavenged a can of peaches from a crate labelled in French, and you pass it around like communion. The syrup is thick and sweet and tastes like something from a better world. You close your eyes while you eat, trying to remember your mother's voice, the creak of your porch swing, the smell of laundry hung out in summer sun. "I saw it happen once," Riley says, staring into the fire. "Guy steps on a mine and knows it. Just knows. Stays standing. Whole squad tries to help, couldn't do anything. He asked someone to shoot him instead of waiting." No one says anything for a long time after that. There's a debate in the ranks now. Whispers about morale, about fatigue, about the officers losing their grip. Everyone's tired. Bone tired. You're not sleeping well. The shelling dreams are worse. Sometimes you wake up in the middle of the night and have to physically check your body, counting fingers, tapping toes. Riley's been twitching in his sleep lately. Diaz mutters in Spanish when he thinks no one can hear. The war is changing again. The Germans are retreating deeper into their own territory, and every mile gained feels like a trap. Their lines tighten. Their tactics get desperate. Mines, tripwires, snipers, and the occasional booby-trapped corpse. You learn not to touch anything. Don't pick up souvenirs. Don't kick helmets out of boredom. Don't open drawers. Don't trust an abandoned bottle of wine. You hear a story from another unit about a guy who found a violin in a ruined house. Started playing it, right there in the middle of the wreckage. German soldier heard the music and walked into the open with his hands up. Said the tune reminded him of home. No one knows what happened after. Maybe they shot him. Maybe they let him go. The story ends differently depending on who tells it. That's how this whole war feels now. Muddy, improvised, half made of rumours and half of truth. You cling to what makes sense. Your rifle, your squad, your boots, your next step forward. You stop thinking long term. You stop making plans. Do you write a letter to Sims? You don't know if he'll get it. You just say you're sorry. That you hope he made it. That you think about that morning every time you lift your foot. You don't say what you really mean, which is, it should have been me, but maybe he already knows that. People stare. Someone laughs awkwardly. Your mother rushes over and helps you up, dusting off your shoulders like you're 10 years old. "Just a firework," someone says. "Part of the show." You nod, but you're still shaking. You leave early. Here's a weird footnote for the history buffs. After the war, some soldiers had to take civilian re-entry classes, actual courses that taught them how to dress for job interviews, how to talk to civilians, how to balance a checkbook. You never got one. You're figuring it out as you go. Some days you feel like you're doing all right. Other days, you catch yourself flinching at your own reflection. You visit the cemetery once, not a war memorial, just the local one. Rows of stones, most clean, a few leaning. You find a spot under a tree and sit with your back against the trunk. You think about Jennings, about Burke, about Riley. You imagine where their names might be now, chiselled into granite halfway across the world, marked with little flags or maybe nothing at all. You talk to them, quietly, tell them you're sorry, tell them the war's over, tell them you miss the harmonica and the bad jokes and the way Burke would say something smart and then trip over a root 5 minutes later. You don't cry, you just sit there, breathing, until the shadows grow long. On the walk home, a breeze picks up. Smells like rain. You pull your collar tighter and keep moving. Your boots are worn now, soles starting to peel. You should replace them, but you don't. Not yet. One night you dream of the river crossing in France, the one with the broken bridge and the artillery that didn't stop for 2 days. You wake up in a cold sweat, hand clenched around the edge of the mattress. You stare at the ceiling for a long time. Then you get up, go to the kitchen, and pour yourself a glass of water. It tastes like tap and copper in the past. You stand there in the dark, barefoot, finally letting yourself say it out loud. I'm still here. And it echoes in the silence like a promise. Spring turns to summer, and the town begins to bloom in that stubborn small-town American way. Lawns mowed in diagonal stripes, clotheslines full of laundry snapping in the breeze, ice cream trucks humming down familiar streets. On the outside it's like the war never happened, like time paused and waited for you to catch up. You sit on your front porch most evenings now, boots propped on the railing, sipping lemonade your sister insists on making from scratch. You watch the sky bleed orange and purple and wonder how something so beautiful can still feel hollow. A kid rides by on a bicycle, his baseball glove tucked under one arm. He waves and you wave back. You've started waving more. smiling more, not because you always feel like it, but because you're trying. It's like rehab for the soul, stretch, wince, breathe, repeat. Work at the hardware store has settled into routine. You fix things now. It sounds small, but there's power in it. Someone comes in with a broken latch or a leaky faucet and you solve it. No gunfire, no screams, just metal, wood and patience. You start keeping a small notebook in your back pocket, jotting down the things you learn. The size of bolts, the names of finishes. Sometimes when you're alone in the back room you write other things, fragments of old memories, lines from dreams. You don't know what they are yet, but they feel important. One Saturday your father brings out the old radio and sets it up on the porch. You sit together, listening to the ball game, not talking much. You chews on a toothpick. You nurse a cold root beer. The announcer's voice is scratchy but steady. When the home team hits a double, your dad grunts, "That's what I'm talking about." And for a moment it's like you never left. Later he turns the dial and lands on a big band station. Glenn Miller, Benny Goodman. The music floats into the dusk like perfume. You remember a dance you went to before the war, where the air smelled like floor polish and someone's cheap cologne. You remember the feel of a girl's hand in yours. Her name escapes you, but the warmth doesn't. You get a letter from Diaz. He's back in California, working with his uncle building houses. "The wood doesn't shoot back," he writes. "I think that's a fair trade." He says he misses the old squad, even the terrible Chow, even you. Mostly you, though. You were the least annoying of the bunch. You laugh when you read it. Really laugh. It startles your sister. She says it's the first time she's heard that in months. There's a girl now, not the pharmacy girl. Someone new. You meet her at the diner where she works part-time, bringing milkshakes to high schoolers and dealing with the kind of grown men who think a wink is a substitute for manners. Her name's Claire. She's got a scar above her eyebrow from a bike crash when she was 10, and she makes fun of your handwriting like it's a moral failing. You like her immediately. It starts slow. Pie and coffee after her shifts. Walks by the lake. You tell her bits and pieces. Never the whole story, just moments. The foxhole in Belgium. The letter from a dead man's pocket. The time you watched a town disappear under artillery and had to pretend you were okay with it. She listens, really listens, doesn't try to fix it, doesn't flinch. One night you show her the little notebook you've been filling. She reads the first page, looks up and says, "You should write a book." You shake your head, laugh, say, "Nobody'd read it." She just shrugs. Maybe, but maybe they should. There's a memorial in town now. Just a simple stone slab by the courthouse etched with names. You visit it sometimes, trace the letters with your fingers. Jennings, Riley, others. You leave a penny on the stone, not really sure why, just that someone told you it was a thing, it feels right. And here's a strange post-war tradition. People started planting victory gardens not to support the war, but to remember it. Tomato vines and cabbage rows tended by hands that once held rifles. You start one too, tomatoes mostly, some green beans. Your mother helps. Your sister laughs when you forget to weed. Claire brings over compost and kisses you when you get dirt on your nose. One Sunday you wake up and realise you haven't had a nightmare in 2 weeks. You sit up slowly waiting for it to catch up, but it doesn't. The room is still. Your boots are still beside the bed, out of habit more than fear now. You touch them once, just a light tap, and then leave them there. At breakfast your father reads the newspaper aloud. "They're turning part of the old base into a community college," he says. "You could take classes if you wanted." You shrug. "Maybe." He nods. "It's good to have a plan." You look out the window at your tiny tomato plants and think, maybe I already do. Yeah. You and Claire go to the movies. You sit in the back row, share popcorn, and whisper smart-ass comments during the previews. The feature film is about a soldier who comes home and becomes a cowboy. You roll your eyes, but you don't leave. When the lights come back up, Claire kisses you and says, "You could be a cowboy." You smirk. "Only if I get a horse." "No," she says. "You'd name it something stupid." You probably would. Here's something you didn't expect. Happiness feels like a kind of resistance. Like choosing to smile is defiance against everything that tried to break you. You're still scarred, still tired, still not all the way back, but you're here, you're alive, and that counts for something. You write another letter to Diaz. Tell him about the garden, the girl, the tomatoes that still taste like wet socks but might get better. You write, "I think we're going to be okay." You don't underline think this time. And one day you finally pack up your boots. You don't throw them away, you don't polish them, you just fold them into a box, tape the lid, and slide it under your bed. Not because you want to forget, but because you're finally ready to stop carrying the war on your feet. And now here you are, not in a foxhole, not on a muddy road in France, not peering through the sights of a rifle or holding your breath while the sky splits open above you. No, you're here, in a small quiet house with creaky floorboards and the steady hum of a ceiling fan. The war is behind you, the uniforms folded away in the back of a closet. The medals are tucked into a drawer, forgotten more often than not. Life is ordinary again, and you're learning that ordinary might be the most extraordinary thing of all. Some nights you still hear echoes. A door slams and your heart stutters. A thunderstorm rolls in and you swear you can smell gunpowder. But they're just echoes now, not chains. The past doesn't hold you by the throat anymore. It just taps your shoulder now and then, a reminder of where you've been and what you survived. Claire is still beside you. She reads your scribbled stories, the ones you thought you'd never show anyone, and tells you they matter. She reminds you when to breathe, when to laugh, when to put the shovel down and just watch the garden grow. She's patient on the bad days, fierce on the good ones. You don't know how you got so lucky, but you've stopped trying to question it. Your parents are aging, slower steps, more naps. You help your dad in the workshop more often now, but he mostly watches while you sand and glue and hammer. You don't need me anymore, he says once. You smile. That's not true, you reply, just different. The town changes in small ways. The old movie theatre becomes a bank. The diner gets new booths. New kids ride their bikes down the same cracked sidewalks, their laughter filling the air where once there was only silence. You're not part of the past here. You're part of the present. The future even. You didn't come back the same. No one does. But you did come back. And now, after everything, you're learning to live. You, the one who survived. The one who made it through the snow and the fire and the waiting. The one who learned to smile again without guilt. The one who took off his boots and let the ground beneath him be safe again. You'll never forget. You're not supposed to. But you've earned your peace, you've earned your homecoming, and it's okay to let yourself believe in joy again. That night, the wind howls through the broken shutters of the house you've claimed for sleep. You sit in the dark, listening to it sing through cracks in the walls. It sounds almost like a voice. You try not to imagine whose. You finally lie down, one boot still on, hand resting on your rifle. You dream of home. Then the morning comes again. Winter creeps in without asking permission. One morning you wake up and your breath clouds the air in front of your face like fog from a train engine. Your blanket's stiff with frost, your canteen's half frozen, and your boots feel like cold bricks clamped to your legs. You groan as you move, joints stiff, spine crackling, like you've aged 30 years overnight. Everyone else looks the same, pale, tired, shivering even before the wind picks up. The war is grinding down to something colder now. Everything sharpens. The landscape, the silence, the pain. There's a new weight in the air, and it isn't just the snow. You're somewhere near the Ardennes forest now, camped in a patch of woods that looks like it was drawn by someone who hated comfort. Tall trees stretch up like claws, their bare branches black against a sky the colour of unwashed linen. The snow crunches underfoot in a way that makes stealth laughably impossible. You're bundled in every layer the army has seen fit to give you, which turns out to be not much. Wool, canvas, thin gloves, a scarf someone sent from home. It's better than nothing, which is a phrase you now use every day. The orders are routine: dig in, hold position, wait. You've been told that the German army is basically done, retreating in clumps, running out of fuel, running out of men. That's what the brass says. That's what the newspapers back home say. And you believe it, until you don't. It starts just after midnight, a few days before Christmas. You're on watch, tucked into a foxhole with your rifle resting on your lap and a hand warmer stuffed in your coat like a joke. The stars are bright, mockingly so, and the night so quiet that even breathing sounds suspicious. Then the forest shifts, not with gunfire, not with the shouting, just movement, a wrongness, a hum in your gut that says, get ready. And then it breaks. Artillery, not one shell, not a few dozens, hundreds. The sky turns orange and black like someone flipped the world upside down and dumped hell on your head. You don't run, you can't. You duck, hands over your helmet, dirt and ice raining down like punishment. Your ears ring, your vision pulses, you taste blood, yours or someone else's, doesn't matter. Then come the tanks. The German counter-offensive, later known as the Battle of the Bulge, wasn't supposed to happen. Not this late, not this deep into winter, and certainly not this strong. But here they are. Panzer divisions rolling through the forest like steel ghosts. Machine gun fire sprays the trees. Screams pierce the cold air. You grab your weapon and return fire, but it feels pointless. Your bullets tick against armor like stones against a freight train. You fall back. Everyone does. Not in a rooted panic, just fast, purposeful, like men who know exactly how close they are to dying. The lines blur. Position crumble. Snow turns red. You stumble over a fallen tree, catch yourself just before eating a faceful of slush. Riley's not behind you, neither is Diaz. You duck behind a rock formation, gasping, heart jackhammering. You can't hear much, your ears are still ringing. You scan for movement, friend or enemy, doesn't matter. You spot a shape crawling toward you. It's Diaz. Blood streaked down the side of his face, one hand gripping his stomach like it's the only thing keeping it from spilling open. You crawl to him, drag him behind the rocks. He's talking, but you can't hear the words. You press your scarf to the wound, whisper something, maybe a prayer, maybe nonsense. The rest of the squad finds you minutes later, or maybe an hour. You've lost time. They take Diaz. You don't see him again that night. The forest becomes a hellscape of fire and ice. Trees snap like bones. Shells crater the ground so deep they make the air bend when they hit. You dig deeper. You curse the cold. You shoot anything that moves. And then there's the fog. Thick, heavy, suffocating. It rolls in like an afterthought and turns everything into silhouettes. The Germans use it. They slip through it like ghosts. You see one soldier, rifle raised, and by the time you fire, he's already gone. You don't know if you hit him. You don't know if he was even real. Here's a bizarre historical tidbit. During the Battle of the Bulge, some German soldiers infiltrated American lines dressed in US uniforms, using captured gear, even mimicking accents. They gave false orders, changed the road signs, created chaos. The army started testing its own troops with trivia questions. Who won the World Series in '41? What's the capital of Illinois? You failed that last one once and nearly got shot. It's Springfield, by the way, not Chicago. You sleep in shifts, one eye open, one hand always on your rifle. Your foxhole fills with snow every night, and you spend half your energy just bailing it out with your helmet. The cold numbs your fingers so badly you stop trusting them. One morning you wake up and can't feel your toes. You rub them for an hour before the pain returns. It's worse than the numbness. You eat whatever they give you, mostly frozen rations which you suck on like grim popsicles. Once you get a real meal, lukewarm stew delivered in a dented tin, and it tastes like heaven. Someone shares a piece of chocolate from a care package. You swear you almost cry. You find Riley 2 days later slumped in a foxhole, legs stiff, rifle clutched to his chest. Frostbitten, barely responsive. You call for medics and they take him away. You never learn if he comes back. The battle drags on, days bleed into nights. The Germans push, you push back. It's not clean, it's not cinematic. It's slog, grit, screaming silence. You fight for feet of ground, sometimes inches. You hold a farmhouse for a full day, only to lose it that night and take it again in the morning. The cold is constant. The fear, too. One night, during a lull, you sit in your hole and think about Christmas. It's Christmas Eve, you realise. Someone nearby starts humming a carol, Silent Night. A few voices join in, broken, hoarse. The sound is eerie, surreal, almost holy in this godless place, Tom. You think about home, your sister hanging ornaments, your father shoveling the driveway, the way your mum used to burn the ham and pretend it was intentional. You close your eyes, you try to smile, then the singing fades. The guns return, and so does the fight. You don't remember the exact moment the cold stopped bothering you. It's not that you got used to it, you didn't. You just passed some invisible threshold where misery became the background hum of your existence. The snow under your boots crunches the same as always. The wind still bites your face like 1,000 tiny razors, and your fingers are so stiff you can barely reload. But it doesn't surprise you anymore. It's just the world now. A frozen battlefield, a colourless mess. A theatre of pain held together by whatever threads haven't snapped yet. The Battle of the Bulge drags on into January. What started as a surprise offensive is now a contest of attrition. The Germans are fighting like cornered animals, desperate and vicious. You're still holding a line near the edge of the forest, what's left of it anyway. Trees blackened by shellfire, craters filled with icy slush and bodies frozen in unnatural positions that look more like sculptures than casualties. You've started calling this place the Deep Freeze, which would be funny if it weren't horrifyingly accurate. You've been here for over 2 weeks now and you haven't taken off your boots once. You don't dare. Frostbite's got 2 of your squad already. One of them, the new kid, Vickers, lost 3 toes before he even knew anything was wrong. You watched them carry him off on a stretcher, his face pale, eyes wide, asking if he'd still get to go home. No one answered. You huddle in foxholes, in ruins, anywhere that blocks the wind. Fires are rare, smoke gives away your position, and fuel is scarce, so you curl into yourself at night, helmet pulled low, blanket wrapped tight, rifle clutched to your chest like a teddy bear in a nightmare. Sleep comes in snatches, dreams in fragments. Sometimes you wake up because of a noise, sometimes just because your body refuses to let you rest anymore. One morning, your squad gets the order to push forward and retake a hill that was lost during the initial attack. It's not strategic, not really. Just another nameless high point on a nameless ridge in the middle of nowhere. But it's on the map, and someone behind a desk decided it needs to be green instead of red. So you go. The approach is a mess. Ice-slicked rocks, broken trees, snow up to your knees. You move in a loose formation, spread wide, rifles up. Every few steps you pause, scan the tree line, listen. The wind howls through the forest, carrying with it the strange distant echoes of artillery, like thunder from a storm that refuses to roll in. You reach the base of the hill and start climbing. That's when the Germans open up. They're dug into the ridgeline with machine guns and mortars, using the high ground like it's a throne. Your squad dives for cover, ducking behind boulders and snowdrifts. You return fire, blindly at first, then with more purpose. You spot muzzle flashes and fire at them. You hear someone yell down, and a mortar hits 5 feet away, sending snow and chunks of frozen earth into the air. You inch forward, 1 foot at a time. Your gloves are soaked, your knees ache, your lungs burn with the cold air and smoke. You pass a body. American, face down in the snow, rifle still in hand, helmet cracked. You don't stop, you can't. The hill is steep, the climb relentless. You throw a grenade, it lands short, and you curse out loud. The guy next to you is laughing. You're not sure why. Maybe he's cracked, maybe you are. Eventually your squad flanks the German position. You come up behind their machine gun nest and take it out with a well-placed burst of fire. It's close, brutal, over in seconds. The Germans don't fight long. Some throw down their weapons, hands up, faces pale as the snow around them. One is wounded, badly, blood steaming in the cold. He whispers something in German. You don't understand, but you know it's a plea. The medic doesn't arrive in time. When the shooting stops, you're shaking. Not from the cold, from adrenaline maybe. Or just from being alive again somehow. You sit on a rock near the top of the hill and look out over the white wasteland below. Smoke rises from distant trees. The sky is the same indifferent grey it's been for weeks. You think about what you just did, and then you try not to. You hear later that this counterattack, this whole offensive, was Hitler's last real shot at turning the tide. A desperate gamble. He thought the weather would help him, that the Allies wouldn't be able to mount an effective defence in the snow. Maybe he was right, for a while. But the weather changed, the skies cleared, and the American Air Force came back like a vengeance. There's a debate among military historians about whether this was the turning point of the war in Europe. Some argue it prolonged things, cost lives that could have been spared. Others say it shattered the last illusion of German strength. You've stopped caring about debates. All you know is that you survived it. Barely. You move back to your unit's makeshift camp that night. You're cold, bruised, and too tired to take off your gear. You sit on a box of ammo, open a ration tin, and try to eat something that claims to be meatloaf but looks more like regret. You eat it anyway. Someone passes around a bottle of something, probably not army issued. It burns going down. You take another sip. You write a letter home, but halfway through you stop. You're trying to describe the snow, the hill, the noise, but the words come out wrong, so you scratch them out and write instead, I'm okay, I'm still here, I miss you. You tuck it into your pack and hope you get the chance to send it. That night, you sleep in a bombed-out farmhouse with half a roof. The stars are visible through the cracks. You pull your blanket tighter, curl your hands into fists, and dream of fireless winters back home. Warm socks, wood smoke, hot cocoa. You never thought you'd miss your father's terrible singing during Christmas. Now you'd trade your rifle for it. You drift off eventually, the wind howling through the beams above, a lullaby made of ice and silence. Tomorrow there'll be more marching. There's something they never tell you about war. Sometimes it's boring, not peaceful, not relaxing, just long stretches of nothing stitched between chaos, like poorly sewn seams. You expect every day to be a firefight, every hour to demand heroism. But more often than not, you just wait. Wait for new orders, wait for chow, wait for the next move, the next bullet, the next explosion. You sit in mud, in trenches, in burned out houses that smell like mildew and ash. Sometimes you nap in shifts. Sometimes you play cards with missing jacks and bent queens. Mostly you stare at the horizon and wonder what's coming next, and whether you'll live to see it. You're somewhere in central Belgium now. The worst of the Battle of the Bulge has passed, though no one really says it out loud. It's like jinxing the whole thing. The Germans are pulling back, but they've still got teeth. The last skirmishes you've been in feel less like grand battles and more like sudden jolts. Snipers here, a machine gun nest there, a burst of panic, and then more silence. It's exhausting in a different way. The constant tension wears you down like sandpaper across the soul. You've been assigned to hold a sector along a country road that cuts between two villages, both shelled to oblivion. The trees around it are all broken and burned, leaning like exhausted soldiers themselves. Your unit's been here for a week. No real fighting, no real movement. Just patrols, sentry shifts, and routine maintenance. You dig, you clean your rifle, you haul boxes of ammo from one pile to another, even though no one's sure when you'll need it. Your days have begun to blur. You can't remember what day it is. You stopped caring 3 foxholes ago. The only reliable marker of time is your body. You know it's morning when your fingers are too stiff to make a proper fist. You know it's midday when the hunger kicks in. You know it's night when the fog starts to creep in and the forest sounds change from wind to whispers. You clean your boots again. For the 4th time that day, there's nothing else to do. You use a rag that used to be part of your undershirt and rub until the leather creaks, even though it'll be caked in mud again tomorrow. Riley used to do this, back when he still had feeling in both feet. You haven't seen him since he was evacuated. You don't know if he lost them. You don't know if he made it home. Across the camp, someone plays a harmonica. Badly. But no one tells him to stop. It's the first music you've heard in weeks. It carries strangely in the cold air. You lie back against a half-buried log, helmet pushed forward over your eyes, and let the off-key notes wash over you. You start thinking about your last day at home. The goodbye hug. The packed bag by the door. Your mum's smile trying so hard not to crack. You shake the image away before it takes root. Too much danger in a memory. The boredom brings other things. Weird habits. One guy, Jennings, has taken up whittling. He carves little wooden animals out of broken furniture and gives them names. Yesterday he made a rabbit and called it Roosevelt. Another guy started keeping a diary, but only writes in it backwards. You asked why once. He said, "Makes me feel like time's going the wrong way, like I'm sneaking back home." Here's a quirky piece of trivia. Some GIs actually brought ukuleles to the front lines. Light enough to carry, easy to play, and a bit of levity in the muck. You saw one once slung over a soldier's back like a second canteen. He strummed it in the mess tent, singing a sweet, sad song about California. No one knew the lyrics, but everyone hummed along. One afternoon, you're assigned to patrol the perimeter with Burke, a guy from Wisconsin who used to be a science teacher. He tells you facts while you walk, like it's his way of keeping sane. "Did you know," he says, rifle balanced on his shoulder, "that sea turtles can breathe through their butts?" You pause mid-step. "I did not." He grins. "See, war is awful, but I'm still spreading knowledge." You kind of love him for that. Halfway through the patrol you spot something, a glint in the snow near a ditch. You both freeze, then approach slowly. It's a helmet, German, attached to a body half buried. He's been dead a while, no weapon nearby, no identification. You both stare at him for a moment. Then Burke kneels, mutters something you can't hear, and tucks a blanket over the corpse's chest. "Don't want him catching cold," he says, standing back up. You nod, and the two of you walk on without another word. That night, a care package arrives from home. Not yours, someone else's. You all gather around like it's Christmas morning. Inside, socks, hard candy, a couple of comic books, and a letter from a kid addressed to any soldier. You read it out loud. It's simple, full of misspellings and bad grammar, but it's sincere. It ends with, "Please don't die. My mum says you're brave."
You don't know whether to laugh or cry.
Later, while cleaning your rifle in the dark, you catch Burke scribbling in a notebook. What are you writing? You ask. He shrugs. Just trying to remember things I've already forgotten. You don't press him. You know what he means. Things get fuzzy. Dates, names, the order of events. It's like the war erodes not just your body, but your sense of linear time. That night you write another letter home. You don't say much, just that you're okay, that you've seen some countryside, that you're eating well. All lies. You don't mention the sniper, or the girl with the rabbit, or the fact that every time you close your eyes, you see Klein's face. You just sign your name and add a little smiley face your sister used to draw. It feels ridiculous, but it's all you have. You lie back in your foxhole, the sky above thick with stars you can barely see through the haze of war. Somewhere nearby, artillery booms, but you're too tired to flinch. Your fingers rest on your rifle, but your brain's already starting to shut down. You tell yourself tomorrow will be quieter. You know it won't be. You wake up wet. Not damp, wet. Rain came down hard during the night, turning your foxhole into a personal swimming pool. Your boots squelch as you move. Your socks cling to your feet like living things. Everything smells like wet wool, rust and mould. You wring out your jacket, slap on your helmet, and force down a cold lump of ration bar while your breath fogs in the early morning chill. This is your life now, soggy, gritty, and perpetually exhausted. Today's mission is simple, which means it's probably going to be horrible. Push another mile inland, secure a crossroads, and set up a temporary command post. Sounds clean and precise on paper, but it translates to crawl through another few miles of booby-trapped hedgerows while being shot at by invisible enemies. The German defences in Normandy weren't exactly what you'd call welcoming. They are not just dug in, they're woven into the land. It's like trying to evict ghosts from a haunted garden. You move out under another overcast sky. It's always grey here. You wonder if the sun has taken a vacation until the war ends. Mud sucks at your boots with every step, and the narrow dirt roads are now just thick brown ribbons you could lose a jeep in. You pass destroyed equipment, dead livestock, the occasional helmet half buried in a ditch. You don't stop to look too long at any of it. The hedgerows close in again, thick, high green walls that feel less like foliage and more like nature's fortresses. Your squad inches forward in silence, rifles at the ready, spread out in a staggered line formation. At one point your buddy Jackson mutters, "Feels like walking through a meat grinder." No one disagrees, and then, as if on cue, the air erupts with gunfire. It starts with a single staccato burst, a German MG-42 by the sound of it, ripping through the leaves from a hidden bunker just ahead. You hit the ground hard, cheek pressed into the mud, and return fire instinctively. The ambush is fast and brutal. Bullets scream overhead like angry bees, and someone yells out, "Man down!" You don't have time to check who. You toss a grenade over the hedgerow and hope it lands somewhere useful. A sergeant calls for flanking manoeuvre. You and two others crawl through a drainage ditch that stinks of manure and rainwater, circling wide. You come up behind the bunker, spot the muzzle flash through a slit in the foliage and fire 3 rounds. Then you wait. No more firing. When you finally approach, the bunker's quiet. Inside, 2 German soldiers lie dead, one slumped over the machine gun, the other halfway through reloading. You breathe hard, staring at the corpses like they might get up again. They don't. You secure the area, patch up the wounded. One guy caught a ricochet in the leg, another's got a graze on his forehead, and press on. The road is lined with what used to be orchards. Apples hang bruised and blackened on broken branches. You pluck one, bite in. It's sour and mealy, but it's better than canned hash. For a second you almost feel normal, like you're just out hiking in some miserable French national park. Then a distant explosion snaps you back to reality. A jeep rolls up carrying a lieutenant with a map and more bad news. The crossroads you're supposed to secure? Turns out the Germans have it, and they are not letting go without a fight. The plan is to take it tonight, under cover of darkness. Your squad gets assigned to the left flank, sneak through the woods, neutralise enemy positions along the tree line, and hold until reinforcements arrive. You nod like this sounds reasonable. Inside, you're screaming. Here's one of those fun historical quirks. American GIs in Normandy sometimes used German weapons when they ran out of ammo, especially captured MP-40 submachine guns. The brass didn't love that, since it made friendly fire even likelier. But in a firefight, convenience beats protocol. You haven't used one yet, but you've seen guys pick them up like they were just trading tools in a hardware store. That night, You crawl through the dark under a canopy of dripping leaves. Every branch that snaps underfoot feels like an alarm bell. Every distant rustle feels like the start of an ambush. You grip your rifle tight enough to make your knuckles go pale. Your helmet slides down slightly with each awkward crouch, and you keep pushing it back up like it might protect you from what's coming. The attack kicks off just after midnight. Flares go up, white ghosts burning across the sky. Then all hell breaks loose. Rifles, machine guns, grenades. You take cover behind a tree, fire 2 shots, drop, roll, move. The world becomes flashes of light and noise and the smell of things burning. You and your squad manage to cut through the side of the German position, take out a mortar nest and set up a line of defence along a shallow trench. The fight lasts maybe an hour, maybe 10. Time collapses in combat. When it's finally quiet again, you're shaking, covered in sweat, soot, and something that might be someone else's blood. You check yourself for holes. Still whole, still here. You help dig in. Reinforcements arrive just before dawn. A few fresh-faced privates who still think this is a grand adventure. One of them sees your muddy uniform and wide eyes and asks, "Was it bad?" You just stare at him for a second, then you say, "Nah, you'll love it." It's not a joke, but he laughs anyway. You spend the morning fortifying the position. Sandbags, barbed wire, more trenches. You sit for a while with your back to a stone wall, helmet off, eating crackers and canned cheese spread. It tastes like paste. You eat every bite. Strange but true, the army actually included tiny packets of toilet paper in the K rations, just in case. You find one in your pack and smile. It's not enough to use, really, but it's the thought that counts. There's a debate going around camp now. Some guys think the Germans are getting ready to pull out. Others think they're planning a counterattack. You try not to think about either. You're just trying to survive the hour. The next patrol, the next mud-soaked ambush that might or might not take your leg. You clean your rifle by lantern light. You write another letter home, this one even shorter than the last. You just say you're okay. You add, "I think we're winning." You don't say how much it still doesn't feel like winning. You don't say you're down to your last pair of dry socks, and you haven't taken them off in 3 days. You don't mention the way the dead Germans looked when you cleared that bunker. You don't mention how their eyes didn't close, and you lie down in the dirt, pull your helmet over your face, rain starts to fall again. You sleep anyway. You're getting good at spotting trouble before it happens, not in the psychic way, more like how a deer hears a twig snap before it bolts. You start to notice the weird sound before a firefight. The smell of cordite still hanging in the air after the last ambush. The slightly too perfect barn up ahead that might be a death trap. It's not paranoia, exactly. It's pattern recognition. A survival instinct you didn't have a month ago. You're adapting, not thriving, just not dead yet. You're clearing another French village today. This one's smaller than the last. Just a handful of stone houses with tiled roofs, some crumbling from artillery blasts, others weirdly untouched like the war forgot about them. A single church steeple rises above the clustered homes, its cross leaning at a weird angle. No smoke, no visible Germans. That's the problem. The quiet ones are always worse. You're part of the point team. That means you're first in. Lucky you! You move through narrow alleys with your rifle up, eyes sweeping rooftops and second-story windows. Every shadow could hide a rifle. Every breeze that rustles a shutter makes your stomach twist. You spot laundry flapping on a line, dresses and underclothes, as if the family that lived here just stepped out for milk and never came back. Your sergeant waves you forward toward a brick house with the door ajar. You stack up along the wall, heart hammering like a drum solo in your ears. The door creaks louder than you expect as you ease it open, and for a moment you brace for gunfire. None comes. You sweep the first floor. Empty. Just old furniture, a fireplace with cold ashes, a plate still on the table with flies buzzing around something grey and forgotten. Upstairs you find something that knocks the breath out of you. A child's bedroom, bright colours, toys, a small stuffed bear sitting upright on the pillow like it's waiting for someone to come home. On the wall, crayon drawings of a family. A mother, a father, a child and something that might be a dog. You stand there longer than you should. When the guy behind you taps your shoulder, you jump like he hit you with a hammer. You keep moving. The squad finishes clearing the houses with minimal resistance. A few stragglers retreat into the woods beyond town, and the sergeant calls it secured. The rest of your platoon moves in, setting up a temporary perimeter. That's when the sniper fire starts. You're mid-step when you hear it, crack, followed by the unmistakable thud of a bullet hitting flesh. Someone behind you screams. You drop to your stomach behind a broken cart, eyes searching the rooftops. Another shot, then another. It's not wildfire, it's precision. Calm, cruel, confident. Your squad fans out, trying to triangulate the source. You spot a flicker of movement in the belfry of the church. There's your guy. Your sergeant confirms it with binoculars and calls in a mortar team. Minutes later, the steeple erupts in a bloom of smoke and shattered stone. The sniper doesn't fire again. When the smoke clears, you approach the church. The doors groan as they swing open, and the smell hits you. Smoke, wood dust, and something that's starting to rot. The pews are splintered, the altar scorched. You climb the stairs to the belfry, rifle at the ready. He's there, what's left of him. Young, gaunt, wearing what looks like a medic's insignia. You stare at his rifle, old, clean, and deadly accurate. There's a small journal near his body, written in careful German script. One of your guys picks it up, flips through it, and mutters. Looks like he was writing letters to his sister. Later that day, while regrouping in the town square, you overhear a strange conversation. One of the medics is talking about German soldiers dressing as civilians to sneak behind Allied lines. It's not just a rumour. There have been confirmed cases. Guys dressed as farmers or priests, even children. You can't verify it, but it burrows into your brain. Every face now holds suspicion. Every harmless old man might be a spy with a grenade tucked under his coat. Trust becomes another casualty. Here's something weird that's actually true. American GIs sometimes carried sweetheart grips on their pistols, custom ivory or mother-of-pearl handles carved with the faces or names of their girlfriends back home. A little touch of love in a world gone insane. You saw one today, on a lieutenant's sidearm. He said her name was Claire. He hasn't written to her in weeks. Back at the edge of town, you're assigned watch duty while others dig latrines and try to patch bullet holes in the trucks. You sit behind a window in a house that smells like burnt soup and gunpowder, scanning the tree line through the scope of your rifle. Your finger twitches every time a bird flutters. You think about that sniper again, about the church, about how easy it is to kill someone you never actually see. That's one of the quiet truths out here. Combat often isn't face-to-face. It's shadows, movement, muzzle flashes. Sometimes the guy who shoots you never even knows your name. There's a debate among war historians about whether that made the war easier or harder on soldiers. Some say distance makes it less personal. Others argue that the lack of closure, of direct confrontation, is what truly messes with your head. You're leaning toward the second option. Night falls like a dropped curtain. You lie down in a room upstairs, trying to ignore the shattered mirror on the wall and the smell of smoke baked into the wallpaper. You hear one of your squad mates crying in the room next door. Soft, quiet sobs. No one says anything. There's an understanding now. Everyone has their own way of falling apart. You close your eyes, hoping for a dream that doesn't involve rifles, crayon drawings, or windows that open just wide enough for a sniper's muzzle. Instead, you get nothing. Just black. And then morning. Some mornings are quiet, but never peaceful. You wake up to birdsong and the distant pop of gunfire, and for a second your brain forgets where you are. You lie there on the creaky floorboards of an abandoned French home, sun slicing through a broken window, and you think you might be anywhere else, until you roll over and your hand lands on a spent shell casing. Then it all comes back. The mud, the blood, the hedgerows. Welcome to France, where your socks are still wet, because of course they are. The ones you packed dry were used 3 days ago during a storm that turned your foxhole into a footbath. You pull them on anyway and shove your feet into boots that haven't known true dryness since you stepped off the landing craft. Every step squelches slightly. You imagine trenchfoot is licking its chops. Today is logistics day, which sounds like a break but absolutely isn't. Your squad is tasked with hauling ammo and supplies to a forward unit that's holding a makeshift outpost 2 miles up the road. Just 2 miles. Should be easy, right? Except the road is muddy, cratered, and flanked by woods thick enough to hide a battalion. You and 3 others load up crates onto a transport truck while 2 more take point on foot with rifles drawn. The sergeant rides up front, scanning the treetops like they're whispering threats. The drive is slow. Real slow. Every pothole is a potential mine. Every abandoned cart, a potential booby trap. You pass through what used to be a farm. Burned out tractors, a chicken coop flattened like it lost a fight with a tank. One chicken is still pecking around the dirt like nothing happened. It feels wrong, or maybe right. You can't tell anymore. Halfway there, the truck breaks down. Something with the axle. Maybe sabotage. Maybe the vehicle just decided it's had enough. Either way, you end up dragging crates of ammunition and medical supplies on foot through thick mud, lugging them like unpaid movers. It's hot now, surprisingly hot. Normandy humidity clings to your skin and fogs up the inside of your helmet. You unbutton your jacket and wipe sweat from your eyes, smearing grime across your forehead. You're approaching the drop point when someone spots a figure dart between trees off the left flank. Everyone freezes. You hit the dirt instinctively, gun raised. Eyes squint into the woods. Was it an animal? A scout? A civilian? You don't know. You don't ask. You wait. 10 minutes. Nothing. The sergeant decides to move on faster this time. Everyone wants out of this stretch of forest before it decides to eat you alive. The outpost is a bombed-out train station that barely qualifies as shelter. The platform is cracked, and one rail line disappears into a crater. Inside, a few soldiers sit behind sandbags, clutching rifles and looking like they haven't slept since last week. You drop the crates off, exchange grim nods, and head back. On the way out, someone points at a wall with a crudely drawn cartoon of Hitler being kicked in the arse by a cartoon Uncle Sam. You laugh harder than you should. You return to your squad's camp just in time for another round of letters. Mail call. It's like Christmas if Santa was late, covered in mud, and your presents came wrapped in government-issued envelopes. You get one from your sister. It's short and sweet, filled with questions you can't answer and news you barely register. Your best friend from high school got engaged. Your neighbour's kid got suspended from school for throwing an egg at the principal. You smile. It feels like another planet. Then there's a letter from a girl you once kissed at a New Year's party. She writes about how she's doing her part at a munitions factory and includes a photo, black and white, her smiling in front of a stack of shells. You stare at it longer than you mean to. It feels like a lifeline. Proof the world still exists outside the hedgerows and ruined towns. You tuck it into your breast pocket, close to your heart. Later, while cleaning your rifle, you overhear a guy named Riley talking about a French resistance fighter he met the day before. A woman with a pistol under her skirt and a cigarette that never left her mouth. She gave him a map, a kiss on the cheek, and vanished into the woods. Some guys think he made the whole thing up. You kind of hope he didn't. Here's one of those strange historical nuggets. American troops in France sometimes use stolen German motorcycles to get around. You see one today, beat to hell, a swastika still painted on the gas tank. The guy riding it has strapped an American flag to the back and scribbled "Free Taxi" across the fender. He grins as he passes your position, and you wonder if he's brave, crazy, or both. The rest of the afternoon is spent digging. Trenches, mostly. The next town is ahead, and that means another fight, so the officers want foxholes and fallback points ready. You dig until your arms burn and your fingers cramp. The dirt is heavy and full of rocks. One guy digs up a rusted horseshoe and nails it to a tree for luck. Another finds an old wine bottle, uncorks it, sniffs it, then decides it's better as a souvenir than a drink. Historians debate a lot about morale during this stage of the war. Some say it was high, bolstered by early victories and steady progress. Others argue that the constant grind, the endless mud and blood, wore men down like water on stone bone. You don't need historians to tell you how it feels. You live it. And right now, it's somewhere between dull ache and boiling pressure. The truth is, boredom in war isn't the opposite of fear. It's a different kind of enemy. It creeps in when your guard's down, softens your focus, makes you careless. You start to think maybe it's safe now, that the worst is behind you, that you can relax. And then just when your brain lets go for a second, something explodes. Not tonight, though. Tonight the harmonica keeps playing, the stars blink through the cold haze, and no one screams. You lie back on your cot, blanket pulled up to your chin, and for the first time in days your muscles unclench. It doesn't last. But it's something. You're not prepared for how much a letter from home can hurt. It arrives in the middle of the afternoon, tossed into your lap by a bored private sorting mail out of a canvas bag that looks older than the war itself. The envelope's creased, stained on one corner by what you really hope is coffee. And the handwriting is unmistakable. Your mum's looping script that always tries too hard to be tidy. You stare at it for a long time before opening it. Like tearing the seal might tear a hole in something deeper. Inside, 5 pages, written in blue ink on paper that smells faintly like her perfume, or maybe you're imagining that. She talks about the neighbours, about the price of sugar, about your sister learning to jitterbug in someone's garage. She mentions that the preacher's son got engaged, and that the hardware store finally fixed the squeaky fan that never shut up in the summer. Every sentence tries to sound normal. Every paragraph stretches for peace, for distance, for the version of life that didn't get shipped overseas in a duffel bag. Then buried in the middle, your father misses you. He asked about your boots. He said he hopes they're holding up all right. You blink. That's it. That's all he said. And somehow it punches you in the gut harder than anything else on the page. Your father's never been good with words. He's the kind of man who speaks through fixes, patches leaky faucets, rewires lamps, mows lawns before anyone else's. He always used to check your boots before winter, tugging at the laces, tapping the soles like he could predict your whole season just from the wear. Now he's thinking about boots while you march through minefields. You fold the letter, tuck it into the inner pocket of your jacket, and sit with it pressed against your chest for a while. A strange warmth blooms there, not enough to thaw the cold in your fingers, but enough to keep you sitting upright. You've been bent too long under a weight you didn't realise was emotional. Letters, even ones that hurt, remind you you're still tethered to something real. Later, while you're on guard duty, Jennings asks if he can read a bit from his own letter. He doesn't wait for a yes. It's from his girl back home, the one with red hair and a laugh that makes milkshakes feel unnecessary, as he puts it. She's written about a movie she saw twice in one weekend and says she's learning to bake pies. For when you get back and eat half of one before I even sit down. Jennings reads that line twice, smiling like an idiot, and you smile too. Then he adds, "She doesn't know what it smells like when someone burns alive in a tank." And just like that, the moment collapses. He stops talking. You both go quiet, rifles resting across your laps, the stars cold and silent above you. Here's a weird detail about World War II correspondence. Soldiers weren't allowed to say where they were or what they were doing. Censorship was strict. Some guys used code, phrases or inside jokes their families would understand. "Tell Uncle Joe the fishing is terrible this season." Might mean you're stuck in the mud near Bastogne. "I sure miss the cold drinks." Might mean you haven't had clean water in days. You think about writing your own coded message. Something like, "The boots are holding up okay." Maybe your father will understand what you mean. The next day, mail call hits again. This time someone gets a Dear John letter. The kind that doesn't bother with grace, just a tidy, "I've met someone else," and a return address that starts with Los Angeles. The guy who gets it doesn't say anything. He just walks off behind a supply tent and lights it on fire. Not the whole letter, just a corner. Watches it curl into ash and drop into the snow. He doesn't cry, he doesn't scream. He just stares at the blackened bits like maybe the rest of his life is scattered in those ashes. Some historians argue that letters were the most critical morale booster of the war. More important than medals, more important than rations. They were oxygen for the soul. Others say they were a double-edged sword, that they reminded soldiers of everything they couldn't have, couldn't protect, couldn't go back to. You're starting to think both things can be true at once. You finally write a reply to your mum that night. You tell her not to worry, even though she will. You mention the snow, how it's not as pretty when it's mixed with gunpowder. You thank your dad for asking about your boots. You lie and say they're still dry, still tight. You say your feet are holding up. You don't tell her you haven't felt your toes in 3 days. You think about writing to someone else. Maybe to a girl you used to know, someone from high school who used to pass you notes in math class. But you don't. You don't even remember what her handwriting looked like. War scrapes away the details first. That night, Jennings asks if you want to play cards. You do. You lose as always. Someone pulls out a harmonica again. Same bad notes, different song. You lie in your cot and reread the letter under your blanket with a flashlight dimmed by a scrap of red cloth. The line that gets you isn't even about you. It's this one. Mrs. Lacey's boy came home on leave, but he won't talk about it. Just sits on the porch and smokes. I think she's happy he's back, but sad too. Is that normal? You don't have an answer. You fold the letter again, slide it under your shirt. The paper crinkles with each breath as if it's trying to remind you that it's real, that you're real. The wind rattles the tin roof above your cot. Someone snores, someone else mutters in a dream. The war is quieter tonight. You know that won't last. But for now, you hold the words close. The push into Germany feels like the beginning of the end, only no one can quite agree on what that end looks like. There's a heaviness to the air now, not just from the damp spring chill clinging to your coat, but from something quieter, more loaded. Every mile forward is a mile deeper into the beast's den. You can feel it. The land changes. The buildings look less like relics and more like wounded stone. Bombed out rail stations, collapsed bridges, farms abandoned mid-meal. The people are harder to read now too. Some stare as you march past, faces blank, while others avoid your eyes like guilt might be contagious. The border was a line on a map, and when you crossed it, nothing really marked the moment. No fanfare, no signs, just more mud, more wreckage, more of everything you've come to expect from this brutal slog of a campaign. But still, you know it. You feel the shift in your boots, like stepping onto cursed soil. You've heard stories from other units, about fanatical pockets of resistance, about surrendering troops who still shoot first, about booby traps wired into children's toys, walls rigged to collapse on command, and soldiers hiding in civilian clothes until the moment's right to kill you. Your orders are to clear a town called Eltzbach, mid-sized, once industrial, now mostly ruins and suspicion. You're riding in a half-track with 5 others, all huddled close for warmth. The engine growls like it's sick of this war too. Diaz sits across from you, writing in a small notebook he keeps tucked in his jacket. You still haven't seen what's in it. He says he's saving it all for his sister. When she reads it, he wants her to know what it really felt like. You respect that. As the town comes into view, your sergeant yells for everyone to dismount. You hop down into ankle-deep slush, rifle raised, eyes scanning rooftops. The buildings lean in on both sides of the main road like they're listening, whispering secrets in a language made of broken windows and soot. You advance slowly, sweeping corners, ducking under doorways, flinching at every creak and clatter. A door slams somewhere up ahead. Just wind, maybe, but your heart leaps anyway. Inside one apartment, you find a table still set for dinner. Dust-covered plates, a roast gone green, wine glasses turned upside down as if they're waiting for someone to come home and pour a toast. The smell of mildew clings to everything. You pass by a bedroom where a cradle rocks gently. No baby inside. The silence here feels less like absence and more like denial. Like the town is pretending the war isn't happening, even as it collapses around itself. Then the first shot cracks out. Not at you, not near you, from across the square in another building. A fellow unit caught it first, one guy wounded, taken down with a shot through the thigh. You sprint toward cover, slide behind a crumbling wall, heart racing, the world narrowing to your rifle's sights. A second shot follows. You spot the glint from a window on the 3rd floor. "Sniper!" someone shouts. You already know. The sergeant calls for smoke. Canister hisses, and the square disappears into a thick white fog. You move with your squad, weaving between shattered carts and abandoned bicycles. You break into the building across from the sniper's perch and start climbing. Every step up the creaking staircase feels like it might be your last. You reach the 3rd floor, burst through the door, nothing, except a rifle, still warm, still resting on the windowsill. The shooter is gone. You sweep the building. No sign, just footprints in the dust leading to the basement. You follow them, flashlight cutting through the dark. Downstairs you find a passage. Old tunnel maybe, or part of some factory infrastructure. It leads under the street. You call it in and another squad goes round to intercept. 10 minutes later you hear a burst of gunfire and a voice calling, "Got him!" You breathe again. That night you bivouac in what used to be a schoolhouse. The chalkboards are full of equations and German handwriting. Someone's drawn a flower in the corner. The kind of thing a child might do when they're bored or scared or both. You sit on a desk and eat cold beans straight from the can and they taste like ash. After dinner, someone finds a gramophone in one of the nearby houses. It still works. They crank it up and spin an old record, something orchestral, sweeping and sad. The music echoes through the halls like ghosts dancing. You sit with your back against the wall, head tilted toward the sound, and let your brain drift. It's not escape exactly, but it's close. For a few minutes you remember what it was like to hear music without flinching. Here's a bizarre fact. Toward the end of the war, some towns tried to surrender using white bedsheets, only to be bombed anyway because the signals weren't seen or understood. Others resisted to the last bullet, even when surrounded. You can never really predict how a place will react to its own collapse. Some dig in, some let go. There's an ongoing debate among historians about how complicit the average German citizen was in all this. Were they just surviving? Were they guilty by silence? Or was ignorance impossible in the shadow of trains and camps and barbed wire? You don't know. You're not here to deliver justice, just orders. In the morning you patrol again. You knock on doors, shout into alleys, search attics and cellars and closets. You find nothing, or sometimes you find people, old women with tear-lined faces, children who stare like they've seen too much, men with their hands up before you even say a word. You wave them on, tell them to stay inside. You don't know if that's the right call, you just hope you're not sending them into danger by telling them to sit still. That afternoon you come across a barn with a sign on the door. Kein Zutritt, no entry. You enter anyway. Inside it smells like mould and hay and something worse, something sour like spoiled meat. You find crates stacked against one wall. Medical supplies, old tools, and buried under a tarp, uniforms. Not civilian. Waffen-SS, blood-stained. You don't find the wearers, but you leave knowing they were here. The enemy doesn't have clean lines anymore. It's not uniforms and flags. It's shadows, whispers, retreating shapes that blend in until they're not. You go back to camp that night uneasy. The town is technically secure, but it doesn't feel like it. You lie awake with your rifle beside you, the gramophone's tune still haunting your head. You're deep in Germany now, and the darkness is thicker here. You smell it before you see it. It's early morning, fog rising in thin ghost trails from the wet earth, and your platoon is following a dirt road east through a stretch of forest that feels unusually quiet. Birds aren't chirping, no dogs barking, just the squelch of boots in mud and the occasional cough or muttered curse. You're getting used to ruined farms and shattered towns, but this place is different. No shelling, no craters, no signs of battle, just emptiness. And then the smell hits. It's sweet and rotten all at once, like meat that's been left out too long on a summer day. Stronger than any latrine pit, thicker than any battlefield. You pull your scarf up over your mouth, but it doesn't help. The stench burrows into your sinuses, clings to the inside of your throat. The guys around you start reacting. Some gagging, one dry heaving into the bushes, another just going pale as paper. No one says a word, but you can feel it. Something's wrong up ahead. Deeply wrong. You crest a hill and see the fence. Barbed wire stretched in rows, 3 strands high, surrounding a cluster of low grey buildings with squat chimneys and metal roofs. There's a gate in the centre, wide open, flanked by guard towers that look abandoned. No signs of German troops, no gunfire, just a few scattered figures in ragged clothing, barely more than silhouettes in the mist, standing motionless near the entrance. Your lieutenant signals for caution, but it's not needed. No one's moving quickly now. You and your squad approach slowly, rifles down, boots crunching across gravel. As you pass the threshold, one of the figures steps forward. He's gaunt, unimaginably thin, eyes sunk so deep you can barely see them. His striped uniform hangs from his bones like drapery on a skeleton. He doesn't say anything, just looks at you with a mix of disbelief and fear as though he's not sure you're real. And then he falls to his knees. The others follow, some cry, some just stare. A few try to stand and stumble. You realise they're not greeting you. They're collapsing. Their bodies can't take much more. The stench of death is stronger here. You walk past a long building with open doors and peek inside, bunks stacked 3 high. No mattresses, just wooden slats. Some of them are still occupied. Not all the people in those bunks are alive. You've entered a concentration camp. The word hasn't sunk in yet. You've heard rumours, stories from guys in other units. Strange, grim places. Mass graves. Starvation. You thought it was exaggerated, maybe even propaganda. But now you're here, and the smell alone confirms everything. You find piles of shoes, hundreds of them, maybe thousands, in every size. You find hair, real human hair, bagged and labelled like inventory. You find a room filled with eyeglasses. You don't know why anyone would collect that many eyeglasses, and you don't want to. In one of the buildings, you come across a row of ovens. Brick, blackened, cold now. There's ash on the floor and soot on the walls. One guy with you stares at it for a long time, then just walks out and vomits up behind the building. You want to be sick too. You want to scream, to run, to wake up. Instead, you just stand there, jaw tight, eyes burning. There's a moment as you walk through the camp when one of the prisoners grabs your sleeve. You turn and look down and he's trying to speak. His voice is cracked, almost gone, but he manages a single word. Danke. You nod, unable to answer. Your throat is closing up. Later you'll find out this place was called Ordruv, a subcamp of Buchenwald. It was one of the first concentration camps liberated by American troops. General Eisenhower himself will visit it within days. He'll walk through these same halls, he'll bring reporters, He'll say that people must see it for themselves because someday someone will try to say it never happened. Even now you know he's right. There's debate. Scholars arguing over how much the Allies knew before arriving. Some say intelligence reports painted a clear picture. Others insist the full extent wasn't understood until you walked through the gates. You don't care about the debate. You only care about what you saw, what you smelled. Back at camp, no one talks that night. You sit around a small fire, eating whatever you can stomach. For once, no one complains about the rations. They're food. You think about then the sky changes. No other way to put it. The clouds ripple with flashes, artillery from the battleships behind you pounding the shore. It's like watching a thunderstorm get angry at the earth. Every explosion makes your boat shudder. And soon the sky isn't just grey, it's orange and red screaming in smoke. The air smells like salt and sulphur and something metallic that gets stuck in your throat. Somewhere ahead is Utah Beach. That's your drop zone. You try to remind yourself that this is the easy beach. Omaha is the one getting torn to shreds by German machine guns right now. You're supposed to be facing light resistance, whatever that means. You wonder who decides what counts as light. Probably someone sitting safely in London. As the beach grows larger in your field of vision, you see the silhouettes of landing craft weaving between anti-boat obstacles, metal X's called Czech hedgehogs. You'll remember that name later when you see one rip a boat in half. Right now it's just chaos. Boats exploding, smoke rising, the smell of diesel, seawater and blood already in the air. The ramp doesn't drop yet. You're still moving. You grip your rifle so tight your fingers go numb. A guy next to you is muttering the Lord's Prayer under his breath. Another just keeps saying, "Oh God," over and over again, like he's stuck on a loop. You catch yourself counting 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, as if that will help you survive what's coming. Then the boat slows and the coxswain yells over the roar of everything. 30 seconds. Time collapses. 30 seconds is nothing. 30 seconds is everything. You adjust your helmet, tighten your straps, try to suck in one good breath. You can't. And then the ramp drops. Water rushes in up to your knees in an instant. You charge forward, but it's more of a stumble. Your boots hit sand. Not dry sand, not the kind you imagined as a kid. This stuff is wet and heavy and full of sharp things that bite into your soles. There's no time to get your bearings. Bullets crack overhead. You hear them before you feel them, zipping by like angry hornets. You dive forward and land behind a half-sunken tank trap. The guy to your left doesn't make it. He gets hit mid-stride, crumples without a sound. Just drops, like a marionette with cut strings. You try not to look. You fail. The beach is chaos. Smoke everywhere, yelling, gunfire from the bluffs above. You remember the briefing? Take the beach, push to the dunes, regroup near the seawall? None of that makes sense now. There's no plan here, just survival. You crawl forward. Sand clings to your face, your rifle, your soul. A mortar lands behind you with a sound that makes your ears ring. Dirt and shrapnel rain down. You can't hear anything for a second except the thud of your own heartbeat. You reach another body, a young corporal whose chest is a mess of red. His helmet's still on. His eyes are open. A medic darts by dragging someone. You want to follow him, but your orders are clear, keep moving forward. So you do, one crawl at a time through a beach that looks like hell's front porch. The Germans are dug into bunkers above you. You can't see them, but you feel them. Every few seconds, another burst of machine gun fire sprays the sand like angry punctuation. You finally reach the seawall. There's cover here. Sort of. Other guys huddle behind it, panting, bleeding, yelling into radios that aren't working. Your sergeant appears, his sleeve torn, one arm red with blood. He grabs your shoulder and shouts something. You think he's telling you to move up the slope. You nod even though you're not sure. Here's a weird detail. Some paratroopers who dropped inland hours earlier were given toy crickets. Tiny clickers they could use in the dark to identify friend from foe. One click meant who's there. 2 clicks meant friend. You remember that and wish someone had handed you one right now. Everything out here is shadows and guesses. There's still debate among historians about how effective the naval bombardment really was. Did it actually soften up the German defences? Or did it just turn the beach into a more confusing, smoke-filled mess? You vote for option B based on the number of guys currently pinned down and screaming for cover. You push up, past the seawall, past more hedgehogs, through a patch of burning brush that singes your sleeves. You see a German machine gun nest. Somehow a team from your unit flanks it. You hear a grenade explode and then silence. That silence feels like a miracle, and then you're over the rise, onto firmer ground. You made it past the beach. Your legs are shaking, your face is streaked with dirt and sweat and someone else's blood. You're not sure how long it took, minutes, hours. Time doesn't work right here. You regroup with a handful of others, breathless, rattled, stunned. One guy just laughs uncontrollably for 5 straight minutes. Another guy digs through his rations like he's starving. Someone hands you a cigarette, and you take it, even though you've never smoked before. The first puff tastes like ash and adrenaline. You look back at the beach, smoke, bodies, flames, a sky that still hasn't cleared. You wonder how many of the guys from your boat are still alive. You wonder how you are, but you're here. You survived the landing. The beach is behind you now, but it doesn't feel like victory. It feels like breathing through a mouthful of ash. You and the surviving members of your unit make it to a small rise just past the dunes, flat ground sloping gently into the chaos of the French countryside. From here, the land is open fields broken by hedgerows, stone walls, and the occasional barn that's either been abandoned or blown halfway to splinters. You crouch behind what used to be part of a fence, trying to clean your rifle without shaking. You keep having to blink sand out of your eyes. Your fingers are raw. You're not sure if that metallic tang in your mouth is fear or blood. This is the part they didn't prepare you for, not the bullets, that part you were ready for or thought you were, but the nothingness that follows. No orders yet, no clear direction, just a dead silent pocket of survival that feels borrowed. You watch a small group of soldiers fan out ahead of you. They keep their heads low, eyes darting left and right. They look like predators, but you know better. They're prey, same as you, just trying not to trigger the next ambush. Eventually the order comes. Move inland. Simple enough, except there are no roads, no signs, just fields soaked in yesterday's rain and crossed by hedgerows. Those thick ancient green barriers the French built centuries ago. Turns out they're the perfect hiding places for snipers, or machine gunners, or tanks. You and your squad move cautiously, inching forward in a wedge formation, the way you practiced back in England. But out here it's slower, sloppier, and 10 times more terrifying. The hedgerows are monstrous. They're not the polite little garden fences you'd imagined. No, these are massive walls of packed earth and roots, sometimes taller than a man, often reinforced with stone or fencing wire. Crawling through one is like squeezing through a jungle made of knives. Every branch seems determined to snag your gear or make noise. You can't see what's on the other side until you're already halfway through, and by then it's too late if someone's waiting. The first time it happens, it's fast. A private from another squad breaks through a hedgerow and walks straight into a burst of German fire. He drops instantly. Your sergeant calls out orders and you all drop, return fire blindly through the green wall, hoping to hit something. Someone tosses a grenade. There's a muffled thud, a scream, and then it's quiet again. You never even saw the shooter. Here's a curious footnote of the war. The army hadn't fully accounted for how these hedgerows would affect the battlefield. Once they realised what a nightmare they were, engineers had to improvise by welding sharp metal teeth onto tanks to break through them. They called them rhino tanks. You haven't seen one yet. Right now, you'd kill for one. You crawl forward, through the underbrush, slipping on wet roots and dodging the tangled remains of what might have once been a vineyard. The air smells of wet earth, spent gunpowder, and something sour you can't quite place. A dead cow lies bloated in a field nearby, flies thick around it. You step carefully through the muck, wondering if the farmer who owned it had time to run before the shelling started. Somewhere behind you, artillery pounds a ridgeline. You don't know whose guns they are, yours or the Germans, but you hunch anyway, like instinct alone can stop a shell. One guy in your squad, Kennedy, tells a joke about the cow as you step around it. Something about fresh milk. It's not funny, but you all laugh anyway. You're laughing at the absurdity, not the joke. Hours pass like molasses poured into a foxhole. Every sound makes your heart spike. You learn to fear silence more than noise. At least with noise, you know where the threat is. The silence just means it's waiting. You reach a crossroads marked by a small stone farmhouse. It's mostly intact, but that just makes you more suspicious. Your lieutenant sends you and 2 others to sweep it. The doors creak open. It smells like mildew and burnt wood. No sign of civilians. A shattered photo frame lies face down on the floor, probably a family portrait. You don't pick it up. Upstairs, there's nothing but dust and broken furniture. You keep your rifle up, clearing corners with the discipline that's already becoming muscle memory. When you're done, the place still feels haunted. Not by ghosts, by choices. Someone lived here, ate here, laughed here. You were trained to clear buildings, you weren't trained to walk through someone's memories. By the end of the day, your unit has advanced maybe a mile. Maybe. You're not keeping track. You're too busy keeping your head down and your boots moving. You finally dig in for the night near a collapsed barn, taking turns on watch. It's your shift from midnight to 3 a.m, and the darkness feels thick enough to bite. You lie there, rifle across your chest, listening to the wind rattle broken shingles, and then you hear it. Movement. Not from your own squad. A twig snaps. A whisper of steps. You freeze. Eyes wide, ears straining. You don't see anything, but that doesn't matter. The fear is there. It builds like a slow boil in your chest. You don't fire. You don't call out. You just stay very still and hope that whatever's out there is more scared of you than you are of it. Eventually the sky lightens to a greyish blue. Dawn. Another day. Another chance to get shot before breakfast. Someone hands you a chunk of stale bread and a tin of cold beans. You eat in silence, barely tasting it. Here's a strange bit of military trivia. Soldiers on both sides would sometimes find each other's ration packs in abandoned camps and rate them. German soldiers hated American coffee but loved our chewing gum. You wish you had some gum right now, something to chew besides your nerves. Historians argue about how organised the first days of the Normandy campaign really were. Some say it was pure chaos, units scattered, communication lines down, everyone just improvising. Others believe the adaptability of Allied forces is what made the invasion successful. You think both things can be true at once. You're alive because someone had a plan. You're still alive because you figured out how to work when that plan fell apart. You lean back against the barn wall, rifle across your lap, boots still caked in mud. You're one day inland, and you already feel 1,000 years older. The day starts early, because the war doesn't care if you got any sleep. The sun rises slow and indifferent behind a sheet of mist, casting everything in a washed-out palette of greys and greens. You're already on the move before your boots finish drying from yesterday's rain, if they ever will. The squad pushes east, deeper into Normandy, inch by miserable inch. There's no paved road to follow, just narrow farm paths hemmed in by more hedgerows that seem to stretch forever, like the land itself is trying to funnel you into a trap. Every 20 steps, you pause. Listen. Breathe shallow. Eyes up. You never realised how loud your own heartbeat can get until you're trying to hear the snap of a twig or the faint click of a tripwire before it's too late. There's always someone whispering about mines now. Someone else says the Germans booby-trap everything. Doorknobs, bodies, even chocolate bars. You don't know what's true anymore, but you treat every rock like it could explode and every fence post like it's watching you. Then it happens again. Not with the roar of a machine gun, but with the sharp, clean crack of a single rifle shot. The guy 2 steps in front of you drops, face first into the tall grass. No scream, no drama, just gone. The sniper is somewhere ahead, no one's sure where. You all hit the dirt fast. The sergeant motions to flank and 2 guys peel off left. You and another follow him right. The air is thick with tension and pollen, and your palms sweat so much your rifle slips when you adjust your grip. You crawl through a ditch and catch a glimpse of movement, a shimmer in the trees, then nothing. The sniper's patient, skilled. You hate him and respect him in the same breath. After 10 minutes of dead silence, one of your guys opens fire toward the tree line to draw the sniper's attention. It's risky, brave, dumb, but it works. A puff of smoke gives away the shooter's perch, and you hear the thwack of a bullet finding its mark. One of your sharpshooters returns fire, and it's over. When you finally approach the body, it's just a kid. German uniform, no older than you. Maybe younger. A hole through the chest, eyes wide, expression frozen somewhere between surprise and nothingness. You stare for a moment, long enough to feel the guilt creep in. Not because you killed him, you didn't, but because you might have, if the shot had been yours. You think of his mother. His dog tag's read Klein. That name will stick in your head for days. As you press forward, the terrain shifts. The fields open up into small villages, each one scarred by artillery, each one holding who knows what behind its shuttered windows. Today it's Sainte-Marie-du-Mont. Tomorrow it might be another town with a name you can't pronounce but will remember forever. The pattern is always the same. Approach cautiously, secure the perimeter, clear every building, hope the civilians have already run. In this one, a barn hides a machine gun nest. Your squad catches it in time, but not before the first man through the door takes a hit to the shoulder. He screams, and you all fall into motion, firing through slats in the walls, tossing a grenade in through the loft window, charging in with their bayonets ready just in case. The enemy soldiers inside are barely more than teens. One tries to surrender and gets shot anyway. Not by you, but still your stomach lurches. War has rules, technically. The Geneva Conventions are supposed to protect surrendering soldiers, civilians, medics. But out here, in the mud and blood, it's chaos. Mistakes get made, fear leads, judgment lags, and sometimes there's no one around to write it down. Outside the barn, you find a little girl, maybe 5 years old, clutching a stuffed rabbit. She doesn't speak, just stares at you with those wide, stunned eyes. One of the guys kneels, offers her a chocolate bar from his rations. She doesn't move. After a long pause, a woman, her mother probably, appears from behind a broken stone wall. She takes the girl's hand and walks her away. No words, no thank you, just survival. You fall into a rhythm: march, search, fight, rest, repeat. Your squad is down 3 men from the original 12. One was killed, one evacuated with shrapnel in his leg, one simply vanished during a night movement. You try not to think about where he is now, or what's left of him. You still do roll call every night. Still call his name. No one answers. One night, while setting up camp on the edge of a vineyard, you meet a British paratrooper who got separated from his unit. He shares a can of sardines and some weird preserved pudding he calls Spotted Dick. You try it, it's awful, you both laugh anyway. He tells you about dropping in behind enemy lines, about having to kill a German officer with a shovel. He says it like he's talking about the weather. Then he goes quiet. You both do. Here's something odd. In the chaos of Normandy, some soldiers used cows as cover, literally crouched behind them, hoping the enemy wouldn't shoot at livestock. Some Germans did anyway. You hear about one guy who rode a cow across a field under fire. No one knows if it worked or not. You decide not to try it. There's a growing debate among the officers: press forward aggressively, or dig in and secure what you've already taken. The brass back in London and Washington want speed. They want headlines, but the terrain out here favours defence. Every hedgerow, every ruined farmhouse is a potential ambush point. Some lieutenants say charging ahead is suicide. Others say caution is cowardice. You're just a private, so no one asks your opinion. But if they did, you'd say this: the trees have eyes, and the earth wants to bury you. You won't have to invade after all. You won't have to storm beaches again. You won't have to die in a place you can't pronounce. The celebration is immediate, messy, and strange. Guys who didn't talk to each other before are now embracing. There's laughter, wild and unhinged, like everyone's trying to shake off a weight that they didn't realise was chained to their soul. Someone throws on a record player. Jazz spills into the air. It doesn't fit the setting, but no one cares. Here's a strange fact. A few Japanese soldiers kept fighting on isolated islands for years after the surrender. Some didn't believe it was real. Others simply didn't want to stop. One man famously held out until 1974. You wonder what it must feel like to survive a war that never told you it was over. Historians argue endlessly about the atomic bombs, whether they saved lives or ended them unnecessarily, whether they were the only way to end the war, or the first act in a darker age. You're not sure what you think. You're just glad you didn't have to find out what an invasion would have cost. In the days that follow, your unit is assigned to occupation duties. You're told to help manage surrendered weapons, oversee rebuilding efforts, assist with distributing supplies to Japanese civilians. You're not sure how to feel. You're still carrying around the image of Europe's ruins. Now you're being asked to smile at a people you were prepared to kill. It's jarring, confusing. You wonder if peace always starts this awkwardly. The Japanese civilians look at you with guarded expressions, some with fear, some with sorrow, some just seem exhausted beyond belief. You see kids staring at your uniform the same way you stared at the enemies months ago. It's hard to hate someone who looks like your little brother. It's even harder to understand how we ever did. One afternoon, a boy offers you a rice ball wrapped in a leaf. You take it, nod, say thank you in English. He nods back. For a few seconds, you both just stand there in the heat. Not talking, not fighting, just existing. It's one of the strangest and most human moments you've had in months. You don't know what happens next. You don't know when you're going home. You only know that you're still here. Still breathing. Still waiting for your boots to hit friendly soil again. Coming home feels more like time travel than a return. You step off the ship into the hot concrete haze of an American dockyard and for a second your brain refuses to register it. Everything is familiar and completely foreign at the same time. There are billboards again, ice cream carts, people who are in suits, civilians everywhere, laughing and arguing and going about their days like nothing's changed. You feel like an alien dropped into your own country. You're wearing your uniform, but already it feels like a costume from a role you forgot how to play. There's a band playing, a real brass band with bright instruments and a woman singing a war era tune with a forced cheerfulness that makes your chest ache. A group of school children holds a banner that says "Welcome home, heroes." You stand there holding your duffel bag, boots scuffed to hell, unsure whether to smile or hide. You scan the crowd for someone familiar, but no one's come for you. Didn't expect them to. The letter you sent with your arrival date probably hasn't even made it home yet. Still, you catch yourself hoping for a glimpse of your father's hat, your mother's dress, your sister's bright red scarf. But all you see are strangers, clapping, waving, calling out names that aren't yours. Someone offers you a soda. You take it. It's cold and fizzy and tastes like the distant memory of a summer before the war. You nod your thanks and keep walking, eyes down, unsure if you're marching towards something or away from it. The train station's 2 blocks from the dock. Your unit's been given leave, but it's up to you to figure out where you go next. The train ride is long and quiet. You stare out the window at fields and towns and telephone wires that zip past like threads in a tapestry you barely remember. The other passengers avoid your eyes. Some glance at your uniform and nod politely. Others don't look at all. You can tell who's fought and who hasn't. It's in the posture, in the silence between words. You finally arrive in your hometown just after dusk. The station hasn't changed. Same creaky benches, same vending machine that probably still doesn't work. The platform is empty, save for an old man smoking a pipe and a kid reading a comic book. You step off the train, duffel in hand, and realise you have no idea what to do next. You walk home. It takes longer than it should. Every block feels stretched. Familiar houses line the streets, but the lights inside seem too dim. The fence is too crooked. It's like a memory rendered just slightly out of focus. And then you're there. Your house. Porch light on, the curtains drawn just like always. You stand at the edge of the lawn for a long moment, unsure whether to knock or just walk in. The front steps creak exactly how you remember. The screen door sticks. You rap your knuckles once, twice, footsteps. Then your mother opens the door. She doesn't say anything at first. Her hand goes to her mouth and her eyes go wide. You think she might faint. But then she steps forward and pulls you into a hug so tight you feel like your ribs might crack. She's sobbing, but quietly, like she's trying not to startle you. Your father is next. He steps into the hallway, blinking like he just woke up from a dream. He doesn't hug you. Just walks up, puts a hand on your shoulder and says, "You're home." That's it. No speech, no grand moment. Just that, and it's enough. Your sister appears from the kitchen. Her hair's longer. She squeals when she sees you, throws her arms around your neck, then immediately starts chattering about the neighbours, the garden, some boy she's dating now. You nod along, overwhelmed and oddly grateful for the normalcy. They feed you. Of course they do. Chicken and mashed potatoes and green beans that you eat like you've never tasted food before. You don't realise how hungry you were until your plate is empty and your fork's still in your hand. Your mother insists on making pie. Your father brings out a bottle of something he was saving. For when you came back, he says. You wonder if he ever really believed you would. After dinner, they all go to bed early, leaving you in the living room with a blanket and the soft ticking of the old clock above the mantel. You sit in the armchair by the window, lights dimmed, the smell of dinner still lingering in the air. Outside, crickets chirp. Somewhere far off, a dog barks. And you feel nothing. Not sadness, not joy, just a heavy quiet that settles into your bones. You made it. You're here, but part of you didn't come back. Or maybe it came back, but isn't ready to be unpacked yet. Here's a strange fact about returning soldiers. Many describe the hardest part of the war as after it ended. Reintegration, normalcy, the absurdity of going from storming villages to mowing lawns. Some men thrived, others drifted. Some simply never found a way back into their old skin. The next few days pass in a strange blur. People stop you on the street to thank you. Some ask questions. Did you kill anyone? Was it scary? What was it like over there? You give them vague answers. Yeah, it was rough, you say. Or, glad it's over. They nod, satisfied, never knowing that some questions don't have safe answers. You visit old haunts, the diner, the lake, the movie theatre that's now playing the bells of St. Mary's. You try to laugh at a joke from a friend you haven't seen since high school, but the sound feels strange in your throat. At night, you still sleep with your boots beside the bed, just in case. You keep your duffel packed, half out of habit, half because some part of you doesn't trust the peace. Not yet, maybe not ever. You wonder what comes next, a job, college, a family. Everyone's expecting you to settle, but you're not sure what that means anymore, because you survived. But surviving isn't the same as living. It's the quiet that gets you, not the friendly porch swing on a Sunday kind of quiet. This one's heavier, dense and unnatural, like it's pressing in on your ears. You notice it in the mornings most. You wake up before the sun, breathing like you're still in a foxhole, eyes scanning the ceiling like it might collapse, and then you just lie there. No bugle, no roll call, no orders, just silence. You don't even realise how long you've been awake until the birds start chirping and the scent of coffee seeps through the floorboards. You try to settle into something like a routine. It's what everyone tells you to do. Your dad takes you down to the hardware store and introduces you to the manager like you're a new hire, and not a man who's crawled through the wreckage of 2 continents. The manager says they could use someone with a strong back and good instincts. You nod, shake his hand and say all the right things. He gives you an apron. You hang it on a hook in the back room and don't touch it for the first 3 days. The rhythm of civilian life feels strange, predictable in a way that almost feels fake. People complain about gas prices, about rain ruining the town picnic, about how the local baseball team keeps striking out in the 8th inning. You nod along, smile where you're supposed to, but it's like watching a play where you can't remember your lines. Your mouth says, yeah, that's tough, but your mind is seeing Jennings bleeding out behind a barn in Germany. There's this moment during your 2nd week on the job when you're helping an old woman carry a box of nails to her car. She thanks you, says, "You're so kind, my son would have been your age." And she smiles in that aching, glassy way that says more than she means to. You freeze. For a second you think you're going to drop the box, run down the street, scream until something breaks. But instead you nod. "I'm sorry," you say, and you mean it. That night you go to the lake by yourself. The same one you used to swim in during the summers before the war. It's empty now, still too early in the season for swimmers. You sit on the dock and watch the water ripple, black and glassy under the moon. You light a cigarette, though you don't even remember when you started smoking. Maybe Riley gave you your first one. Maybe you took it from Diaz when you couldn't sleep one night in France. Doesn't matter now, it's just something to hold on to. You think about writing again. Letters, maybe, or a journal. Diaz always said putting it on paper helped him organise the noise. But when you sit down with a pen and blank sheet, nothing comes. The words feel too small, the paper too clean. So you fold it up and stuff it in a drawer. Maybe next week. Here's a strange little footnote from the war's aftermath. In 1946, the government began distributing pamphlets for returning soldiers titled "Coming Home." They were full of advice like, don't talk too much about the war, and try not to lose your temper. You think about that sometimes when you're trying to explain why you jump at car backfires or why you can't sleep if the windows are open. The pamphlet doesn't cover what to do when the only time you feel normal is in a thunderstorm. One afternoon you run into Burke. You haven't seen him since the day you both got off the ship. He's working at a gas station now, his sleeves rolled up, wiping his hands with a rag that used to be white. He grins when he sees you, wide and toothy, and slaps you on the back like your old college buddies. You end up sitting on a milk crate out behind the pumps, sharing a warm bottle of cola and swapping updates like nothing's changed. Except everything has. Burke's married now. Wife he met on leave, baby on the way. He talks about paint colours and names and what it's like to hear someone breathe next to you without flinching. Then he pauses and says, "You ever feel like you don't belong here anymore?" You nod. It's the most honest moment of the whole day. Later he says he's glad you're around, says, "It's easier when you're not the only one who knows what gunpowder smells like." You both laugh, but it's hollow, the kind of laugh people mistake for healing. You try dating. Once. A friend sets you up with a girl who works at the pharmacy. She's sweet, pretty in a way that makes your chest ache a little. She asks questions, laughs at your jokes, and doesn't flinch when you mention Europe. But halfway through dinner, you realise that you don't know how to be seen anymore. Not like this, not as someone normal. So you thank her for the meal, walk her home, and never call again. The VA offers you a meeting with a counsellor. You skip it. You don't want to sit in a room and tell someone that sometimes, when you close your eyes, you still hear boots on gravel and the low hum of incoming shells, that sometimes you forget where you are and reach for a rifle that isn't there, that you haven't cried since Italy, and you don't know if that means you're strong or broken. You'd rather just not talk at all. Here's a lesser-known bit of wartime aftermath. Post-traumatic stress disorder wasn't officially recognised by the military until decades later. Back then, they called it combat fatigue, or shell shock. You call it nothing. Just a part of the job you couldn't clock out of. You start walking at night. Long walks, aimless ones, past quiet houses with yellow windows and families inside watching sitcoms and sipping tea. You keep to the sidewalks, hands in pockets, eyes low. One night, a dog barks at you and you freeze. Not because you're scared, but because the sound makes your shoulders lock like you're back on patrol. But you keep walking, because there's something calming in the motion, something alive in the ache of your legs, and because it's easier to keep going than to stop and ask if you're really home yet. Your father starts leaving his workshop door open more often. It used to be a private space, his refuge, a dusty sanctum filled with shelves of screws and faded blueprints and the smell of sawdust and oil. Now, you find him there in the afternoons, tinkering with an old cabinet or sharpening tools that haven't been used in years. He doesn't say much when you come in, just nods toward a stool and keeps working. At first, you sit and do nothing. But one day, he hands you a chisel without a word, and that's the beginning of something. Maybe not a conversation, but a shared silence that says more than words ever could. You're not sure how long it takes for your hands to remember what peace feels like. Tools instead of rifles. Wood instead of steel. The weight is different, softer. You mess up the first project, measurements off, the cut uneven, but your father just grunts and says, "Try again." And you do, because there's something healing in failure when it doesn't involve someone dying. You rebuild a chair together, then a bookshelf. Eventually, a coffee table that your mother insists on showing off to every neighbour who visits. You made that, she says, and you don't know whether to feel proud or uncomfortable. You settle for smiling, small and stiff, until they move on to talking about their gardens or who's running for city council. Work at the hardware store gets better, or maybe you just stop resisting it. There's a rhythm to stacking shelves, ringing up nails, explaining the difference between two kinds of screws to someone who's never used a hammer in their life. You even start coming in early some days, not because you have to, because you want to. The quiet hum of fluorescent lights, the clink of metal on metal, it grounds you. Reminds you that life still exists in the little things. You're walking home from the store one afternoon when a kid stops you. He's maybe 12, skinny with a baseball cap too big for his head. "Hey," he says, "were you in the war?" You hesitate, then nod. He squints at you like he's trying to picture it. "Did you shoot Nazis?" he asks, like it's an arcade game. You manage a half laugh. "Yeah," you say. "A few." He nods solemnly, then asks, "Did it hurt?" You pause. "Yeah," you say again, and this time it's different. This time it sticks in your throat. At home, your mother is reading a book in the living room, feet tucked under a blanket. She looks up and smiles, but there's always a flash of concern behind it. You know she hears you pacing the floor at night. You know she pretends not to. She brings you tea you didn't ask for and sits quietly while you drink it, asking questions that stop just short of the edge. You love her for that. You write a letter to Diaz. You don't know where he is now, California maybe. You write anyway. You tell him about the lake, the store, the dog down the street that barks every night at 10 p.m. You tell him about the kid with the baseball. And at the end you write, "I think I'm doing okay." You pause, then underline think. You don't sign it with your full name, just your last name like you always did. One weekend there's a local ceremony for returning veterans. A banner in the park, a brass band, a speech from the mayor. You're handed a certificate with your name printed in gold and people clap. You shake hands with men in suits who've never seen a battlefield and answer the same dozen questions with the same dozen answers. Glad to be home. Yes, it was hard. No, I'm not planning to re-enlist. You're halfway through a hot dog when you feel the air shift. Loud crack, like a tyre backfiring. You drop your plate and hit the ground.